There we are. Hello. I clicked the go live button before I had my camera properly positioned. So hopefully you didn't get like some like digital freeze frame of my nostril hairs or something like that. Oh, the digital era and all the shenanigans that ensue as a result. The yeah, it's been a really interesting well, hell, the whole year has been interesting, but man, is it ever getting weird. And so I often talk about like the whole ecosystem of, behind the scenes deep state shenanigans that go on. And I want you guys to know it's like I'm not like completely alone in some of the things that I've said. I mean, it's kind of I don't know, in part, it's a bit of a unique perspective, I suppose. But by and large, there's quite a few people that I think are very conscious and aware of where the problems lead back to here in America, within our own infrastructure, like what's causing us as Americans problems, and what's causing our partners in the rest of the world issues with us relative to these global conflicts and wars or interventions wherein the United States takes a direct position or a proxy position to a conflict with another major superpower. Two classic examples recently are things like Russia relative to the Ukraine as one that's already going, and then one that's kind of in the background and nearly there is Taiwan and China. And again, these are the kind of things that we as Americans really at this point in time in our history should be kind of staying out of. But it kind of is highlighted an issue, I hope, for America, both within our military, for those who just didn't understand it. I hope not just in our military probably has the most understanding, I would think. They'd probably have the most sophisticated just because of see in a larger global scale informationally. But I think it's been a challenge to get people in this country to really understand everything that's like the nuances of the disinformation that goes on, and so this isn't me talking about Russia or anything like that right now, guys. I'm not going to get deep into that topic or anything like that, but it's just simply that I do though recognize that there's a common problem, like with the way that Americans are sort of weaponized psychologically, or encouraged to be to show disdain towards the Russians. Overall, I mean, it's like there's somebody that really wants this to be more than just an argument between governments. They really want there to be like some actual personal feelings where a Russian like that's here already would not be welcome, for example. Like that's kind of like at the root of what Nazis were doing with the Jews, right? They always sort of like, and again, here within America, we have this completely unknown, undocumented aspect of our history, or it's been covered up. And so we've been given like a very shiny, happy people rendition of Operation Paperclip, where we brought in many thousands of Nazis. They say officially about 1,500 into Fort Bliss, but see, they only documented that 1,500 in that article for Fort Bliss. But I'm personally aware, and through my own research, have verified there were about another 1,000 that were brought into Northern California. And that was done through the Tule Lake segregation facility in Newell, California. And there was adjacent facilities that housed some of them that were actually in Tule Lake, the town, California. And I know this because I have family members that all grew up there, multi-generational family members that grew up out there that are connected to my mother's side of the family. So that literally have roots right where those Nazis were put into, guys. I mean, it's not like they were nearby. I mean, they were there. They were right smack in the middle of it. And this is why I started to get very suspect of my own family relative to everything that's going on with this modern form of Nazism in America. The way they pulled the wool over our eyes to where we think that the people that are the Nazis aren't really the Nazis. And they're always attributing the term Nazi to people that would be categorized more as ones that have more neoconservative quote unquote fascist perspectives. And that's where you're getting from the more strong right, this more, what do you want to call it? People that are more far left, groups like Antifa, groups that take on that sort of like extreme social position of like anybody who demonstrates a love of this country is a fascist, for example. That's a position that they take as a hard line, that there's no separating you from a Nazi if you love America, which to me is absolutely insane. I mean, we're the antithesis of what Nazism is, yet. Here's our problem, guys. This is where it's very sophisticated in what's going on. I would argue that modern Antifa is a creation of this exact lab and deep state interest that I've been telling you about, because I've actually, without getting too deep into details, guys, I've researched it pretty heavily to know that this whole thing that goes on, especially in Portland, Oregon, where that you see people fighting each other on the front lines, and a lot of them are protesting. It's lucha libre. I'm helping you understand, guys. Like, I'm not that far away from how it got faked, and I actually know like some of the names behind how it got faked, and some of the characters that I see down there. I need you guys to understand, like, I have some pretty strong roots in the Portland, Oregon area. I wasn't just some guy that lived on the outskirts for a while, although I did. No, I lived in the city. I was an insider. I actually mixed with the cool Portland hip crew for a while. I was the hipster is the best way I can tell you guys. I basically looked like this, but I was going different places and hanging out with a lot of the cool kids that dressed in all the skinny jeans and you know, did all the cool things and listened to all the cool music. I mean, I did that for a long time. And I used to go to all these different social events and mix with these people and eat with them in restaurants and hang out in bars with them and close bars with them, and even have after parties at my apartment that I used to overlook what's now known as the Moda Center in Portland. I used to have an apartment there that I shared. And we basically just rented this like place that would have been too expensive for us to get on our own, because it was just right there in the middle of the city and you could get to everything. You could go take the Max line to everything. So just like, guys, I know, like, I mixed with all types of different characters in Portland. Okay. And so I got to know people by face-to-face interaction. So I'm helping you guys get this. Like, I really do know this, that what you're seeing when you look at the things going on in Portland is there are two groups that are there is effectively one group that has a common interest, and that's trafficking. And social justice issues are the distraction. And many of the people that you see on both sides of this argument, this is where I always look unfavorable, guys, because it just seems like I'm another guy that wants to create more doubt in you. And no, I'm just helping you explain why some of the people that they present to you as your hero on the left or the right seem off resonance, because they are. They really are just playing lucha libre. One puts on their mask, the other puts on their mask. They're both engaged in a lot of trafficking shit. But this is where they get on the front line and go like, hey guys, all right, so when we get all of these people stirred up into a big fucking disastrous mess here on the streets, now we start shuffling the kids around, the guns around, the drugs around, doing all the financial transactions, because everybody's distracted over the violence, the launching of shit, the fires. All of that is the distraction. But there's other things going on where they're passing information, they're actually passing items. It's all happening right in front of everybody while the chaos is going on. And this is how they're managing the new things. Because again, guys, if you try to do it any other way, if you don't insert it into a chaotic situation and then shuffle all the information around, you really can't get away with trafficking using the way things are. Guys, there's too much surveillance for anybody to get away with anything. So you have to have an end. Somebody has to be letting you do it. And this is how it's being done. It kind of tricks people that are smarter and more sophisticated, who are doing like looking for more things that are within both local and federal law enforcement. And because they're sort of they're distracted by the event, so they're people that would normally look deeper in or have a more critical eye to all the different characters that are being presented, like they would probably look deeper. But I was looking at over and over again at like the arrest records and characters on both sides of it. Guys, I don't care if it's the right-wing fash, as the Antifa people like to call them, or if it's the ones on the other side that were poking at them, calling them whatever. They were basically, I could tell in some cases. Now, some guys, some of the people that are joining them feel the way they do organically and actually join because they believe in the causes. And this is where it gets super confusing. The leadership is a LARP. Okay, it is on both sides. When you're seeing these things, I'm gonna kill you, I hate you, you fascist, are you freaking breeding heart liberal? Most of what you see presented and is actually amplified in the public perception, that is the LARP. But what happens as a result of the LARP? All the easily led people, especially ones that are on drugs, drunk, they start going down there and they start going like, yeah, what's all this? Yeah, I'm joining this shit. Yeah. Okay, now you have a semi-organic crowd, hence the purpose of a LARP, the purpose of a false flag. It's priming the pump. You're trying to get the actual thing to happen. And then at the same time, they're creating a distraction to get away with the deals. And this is drugs, guns, child trafficking, file transfers amongst people that involve, like high-speed data. It makes it to where they can all meet in the same location. People can pretend to be enemies. They can get a whole bunch of other people to join in, and they become data mules because they begin using them as a hived IP network. This is like, it's sophisticated, guys. Like I try to tell people, like, you're going down to protest because you care, but you don't realize that they're going to hack your phone. They're going to use your IP address. They're going to get next to you, and then they're going to swap their network with your network. They push you on, and you don't even know this is happening to you. Effectively, they have this way of making it where, because they'll place your phone image on the cloud and their phone image on the cloud, they geo-reference themselves next to you. They swap the data routes, and they do this at all these different protests. And I was given this a long time ago, like a couple years ago, saying, guys, these are all bait traps so they can get away with anonymizing data for trafficking, like bad trafficking, the shit that you don't, dark web, buying things that most people would be like, ooh, you can buy that? Yeah, that kind of thing. That's what they're trying to get away with, guys, because you can't do it in normal routes. Any Wi-Fi thing in a Starbucks, or you can't get away with it there. Can't get away with it at hotels. Can't get away with it at apartments. Can't get away with it on your home internet connection. Can't get away with it on your individual cell phone. So they've got to find ways to push it off of their own IP address and onto somebody else's. And this is where you get the whole deep state relationship, because remember who the wizard behind the curtain is, guys. All roads always lead back to SCIC, just like you're going to find with a lot of these actors. There's going to be connections to them that are suspect, but you can't draw a direct line in every case, but you know that something's up there, right? So I don't want to get too deep into the whole, like, I'm not trying to be political on this, guys. My point is to abandon the left-right paradigm. That's all, guys. If you're still in it at all, if you're still like kind of joining in and going like, yeah, throw a zinger at that bleeding heart, or yeah, get that right-wing nut, I say you're still missing the point, and you're probably missing out on the opportunity to have a very good friend or somebody in your life that you're blocking out because somebody's put you into this ideological fence of how to think. And as a result, you're cutting yourself off from a group of people that would be maybe really good for you to know. And that's what I learned. That, I didn't get brainwashed. I didn't get any, mind controlled. I was already on my way to thinking a lot of the things that I was thinking. I just didn't have a solid basis for understanding like why it was fake. And I had to start digging deeper into things that were ironically very, very close to me. Here's the thing I can explain to you guys. Like sometimes people be like, why wouldn't you figure these things out sooner if it's true? Touche. And I understand that. Let me put it this way. When I was working on cell towers, like say you have a monopole cell tower that's like 100 feet tall, right? And the antennas are all panel antennas that aim straight out, right? You have like antennas that are just like sticks that are like omnidirectional. And you have those ones that look like Kit Kat bars, right? Like great big, those of you in America, you probably know what I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys have Kit Kats in Europe or wherever else. I think you do actually. Yeah, you got Kit Kats over there. But a Kit Kat bar, are like these thin things, like these wafer chocolate candies, right? And so if you ever look up on a cell tower, those Kit Kat bar antennas are what I'm talking about. Why am I talking about this? Now I totally forgot why I'm even talking about this. Oh yeah, okay. So on a 100-foot monopole, right? So you got a 100-foot tower and you got those Kit Kat bar type antennas. Well, those antennas, just so you know, like so like right here would be flush with the the base of the tower, right? That's 0 degrees. Then you can have different types of tilt. You can have what's called mechanical down tilt and electrical down tilt. Electrical down tilt's built inside the antenna element. So, for example, you could have an antenna that has 9 degrees of electrical down tilt and it stays like this on the tower. Yet, functionally, what it's doing is this. So its signal is the back of my hand. It's aiming down towards the ground. The elements inside the antenna are aimed 9 degrees downward. That way the antenna is focused more on the people underneath the tower. Okay. But if it's at 0 degrees and there's no mechanical or electrical tilt, then you're trying just to point the antenna straight out that way. And you want the signal to sort of rain down, as it dissipates further away. So why am I telling you this? Well, when you're directly underneath the antenna and the antenna is designed to go 0 degrees, most of your energy and the power from the antenna is being focused away from the tower. So when you're directly underneath it, you don't always get like most of the signal. You may actually get kind of a weaker signal. Now it's very usable. I'm not going to tell you it's like super weak. No, not by any means. But it's not the premium signal. Like you may actually be able to go, hundreds of feet or even half a mile away and actually get a much stronger signal from that same antenna because it's actually aiming. The focus of the beam is actually right there. You're in the main beam of it when you're further away. When you're just underneath it, you're just getting the scatter of it. Informational awareness is a lot the same way. And my problem is historically, my antenna has always been at like 0 degrees, aiming out that way, looking for things everywhere else, and never aiming 9 degrees this way and focusing on things internal to my own family, to my own situation. What are some of the jobs or things that I could have been involved in that maybe I didn't understand the full depth of? Like that I involved in my own life? Real Genius, like the plot line of Real Genius. Did I design something that I didn't want to design and was tricked into doing it? That kind of thing. So I had to ask myself all these questions. And that's when I really started to like tune into this whole. Number one, it began with me trying to understand like why my grandfather on my mother's side was kind of a known child abuser. Like everybody knows. He's even been sued for it. And he's had people like testify from inside his family saying that he's not an abuser, but they know he's an abuser. And like I know one for a fact definitely knew when she testified that he wasn't. And the other person, who's my mother, she claims that she didn't know when she said it, but I know she knows. So I don't know where the hell she could possibly even get that. To me, it's just a bunch of liars protecting liars. And what do they have in common? Well, abusing children. So I'm not letting anybody around me not be held accountable for that very real aspect that's gone on in our family. It doesn't mean that they have to be punished in the classic sense, but there has to be accountability surrounding a question mark of, okay, why are you hiding your father, who was a serial child abuser? How come with all of this information was he allowed to hide for decades down in Mexico? He's not Mexican, by the way. He's just, again, from these regions in here in America, that he was born here allegedly. But then again, that's why I say allegedly, because I don't trust anybody's history from my mother now. So I don't know what the truth is. Because it seems to me that if she was ever honest, she would have been honest with me that in 1945, when she was born, right there in Tule Lake, right when there was 1,000 Nazis surrounding her, she should have some knowledge of that and would have passed that knowledge along to the rest of the family. And I'd never heard a single story or reference to it, not into adulthood, never in any of my studies or travels or anything I've discussed has she ever brought this topic up or ever made me aware that she literally lived in a town that used to be populated by 1,000 Nazi prisoners of war. So it's a secret, and it's a secret these people want to keep. Why? Well, because Nazis don't want to be identified. Am I saying they're Nazis? No, not necessarily. What I am saying, though, is that it's extremely suspect that they're around so much Nazism. And I know that modern Nazism tends to hide behind us. And again, they're hiding on both sides, guys, but they're very crafty about populating heavily behind leftist social justice, women's movements, race movements. I mean, this is where they go, guys. But they're not helping people in those movements. They're trying to keep you enslaved. They're using you. And the people that they bring up in those groups are almost always people that they can get dirty with trafficking or have something on. So you're not even getting authentic leaders within your movements. That's the sad part. Like, guys, I do believe in social justice too. I mean, look, not to a degree, I mean, always, but not fake ones, not fake movements. I know there's problems. Obviously, guys, I have my own issues with this going on with this country, but it doesn't make me hate America. I understand the problem. America is a beautiful country filled with beautiful people, and it's founded on an amazing, a vision that actually should be brought to fruition. It's a living document that's still a living idea, and I don't think we should give up on it. It's a beautiful idea. The problem is we deviated too far from it. That's really the problem. The architecture was placed in there to cure a lot of society's ills that had been permeating for a very long time. And as a society, with America as a beacon, we actually achieved quite a few things. Again, guys, we do have slavery going on even within this country today. Some people are held captive and held, captive for labor, for sex, for all kinds of different things. So it's not like it's perfect. But at the end of the day, we began using this country as a template, and it flourished. It went to other places. Weren't we the only ones doing it? Obviously, guys, I'm not that blind to world history, but make no mistake, when you abolish, something like slavery within America, it has a cascading effect. It makes other countries follow suit. This is a huge hive mind that's making up what we exist in here. And just like the 100th monkey, when you have ideologies that begin here, they pass along from the ocean line to the next ocean line, because we have such a huge concentration of the world population here. And our DNA, it mixes with that ocean frequency, and our values carry over. And this is one of the reasons why I started talking about Russia, is because I spent today listening to Victor Bout. I'm sorry if I said his name wrong. I'll try to get the pronunciation right. But the guy that they're all calling them, America has been calling him the what is it, the messenger of death, or the, anyways, the merchant of death. They created this name around him as an arms dealer, and I heard him explain the case and what he believed, said he had actually done versus what America says he did. And then as I started like reviewing what his reasons were, does it mean I believe Victor's side of things? No. I mean, I'm not saying I do or I don't. I don't know. I wasn't there. But it occurred to me that I've also seen these fake narratives presented by the Department of Justice about other people that I felt were innocent or not guilty of what they were saying was they were making claims of. Or I found that the Department of Justice and the FBI had swept something under the rug of the real guilty party, and then they created a completely fake case to present to the American public that, makes us all satiated that something got done and justice was served. But in all actuality, the real criminal was simply recruited and protected, and then they manage it. And see, the rest of the world's catching on to this, you guys. Like, they know how rigged the law enforcement is within America. They know how you're basically just managing the cartels and the gangs. And see, it'd be one thing if you were only fucking up America, but you're fucking up the whole world, and the whole world isn't going to stand for it. And so what I've been doing with what I do in private and what I do with this channel is I'm honestly in earnest, you guys, because I have actually achieved a certain degree of influence, and I take it seriously. I'm still going to be who I am. I'm my authentic self, but I take my influence seriously. And I've been trying to negotiate to the best of my ability to say, listen, if we can find some way for you, everybody globally who's listening to me, I represent actually a very favorable, like, there's a lot of people in America that actually think the way that I do and actually feel the way that I do. And a lot more people will, once they understand the information, because they'll see how alike we are. Like, we can all have our values, guys, and be different kinds of people and have our different faiths and everything else like that. I'm not trying to take that away from anybody, but we have to take the ridiculousness out of the LARP, fake crisis acting element out of it's an interruption layer that's causing problems with our ability to reason with one another and actually have not even debates, but just agreements. I mean, really, people actually will agree upon more things than you realize if these fakes would stop at doing the LARPs. That's why I'm telling you about the whole Portland thing, guys. Like, I started going like, wait a second, if they're all faking it, then what's the reason for faking it? And then I noticed that one of the main guys there that spits in everybody's faces and starts the most shit and yells and screams and gets the most press attention. He's even been on BBC, guys. He's been on BBC in England. Well, hell, he looks exactly like one of the Bloodline family. He looks like he could be Leon Oskin's grandson. The actor Leon Oskin that I've talked about at length. You can do side-by-side face comparisons and you'll go, whoa. He looks like you crossed Leon Oskin with the Grinch that stole Christmas. It's trippy. So I'm going to get into what makes that a reality. So how are these people even a thing? Well, there's an underground economy, guys. And so again, folks here understand this, but you have to understand, like, well, okay, not that you have to understand, but let me, like, I think this will help explain to those who need like a little bit of a bridge of understanding. There does in fact exist underground in America a whole Swiss cheese of tunnels and interlinking train systems and transportation systems. And the way that they sold this, I think, to the people that were more in official defense circles was for transportation of nuclear materials. And my understanding is, and I've been told this for a long time, guys, but again, I lack the evidence or direct proof, but you can take it or leave it, that the process that they do this with is that they've been using spent nuclear waste, they've been recycling it, and that they're able to recycle it using a process that they call vitrification. And part of how they were processing it, like originally, like helping, they've been doing vitrification in a lot of different ways, and doing experiments with vitrification. And it's basically where you take something like so they have a whole tank of spent nuclear waste, for example, and they're trying to get rid of it. Well, they process it into these plants. And I remember I used to have a cell tower, by the way, when I was doing cell tower design, that was named vitrification plant. It was called that because it was located like just down the street on the Hanford Nuclear Reservation from the vitrification plant. That's why I have some history and knowledge of these things, on top of having family members that work around the thing. And actually used to report to the my brother still actually, well, you know what? He doesn't. I don't think he does report to the nuclear reservation anymore. Well, with these people, who the hell knows? On his resume, it says he doesn't, but I don't know. But so what I'm trying to explain is that underground exists like this whole Swiss cheese of underground tunnel systems and networks. And that once there's something like that, it needs to be maintained. There has to be a way to keep the secret for those who maintain it and actually use it. And they have to be provided some access to it. And again, now you have to create an environment through which, if somebody is let in on this secret, that it's like pretty much certain death if they give it away. Like, they would never want to do it, or they would have to have some ecosystem through which to make that person look certifiably crazy very, very fast if they ever actually let out what they know, because they need a staff to work down there. And then they need to stock it with things, and they need to have, guys, it becomes its own city after a while. It starts to become where people stop, you know what I mean? Like, you must know by now that something of this nature is going on. And I would argue that what you're seeing with especially groups like Antifa is some of that staff. And that's why the deviants, see, they have some people that go down there, and the reason why they can keep the secret is through all of the deviant activity. That way they're all insured. Like, nobody wants everybody to know what they're doing. And then if it ever leaks what they're actually doing down there, well, then now you're seeing the results, guys. They're just trying to normalize it. And I warned you, like I said this to everybody. I said, guys, I was even teetering, like, do we really go with this type of disclosure? Because the danger in it, again, and we're seeing it. But ask yourself, was it better when they were hiding it, or is it better now that they have to come out and just tell you what they are? Because they do. Because before, they were just grooming kids, guys, like in the background, like a whole bunch of these types of groups. They were just like, they were doing it in very private, secretive ways. And again, I'm still debating whether or not this is better or worse. but it's never a good thing when it's a secret. But now we're in this dangerous zone where if people don't actually start to like be sensible about the way they say, you know, something, guys, I'm open to alternative lifestyles. If y'all want to be doing drag or be gay amongst each other and everybody's free willed and open minded adults amongst each other, that's all your business. What y'all do after hours and in clubs amongst adults in adult environments, it's your business. I don't care. I really don't care about your sex life. But guess what? They're saying, oh, you will care about our sex lives and we're going to show it to your children. See, that's not tolerance. You see, what you're not asking for tolerance when you're doing that. You're doing something different. You're testing the boundaries of tolerance in ways that I think you know are going to create cultures of disdain for people from those communities. So I want people from those communities to know I know the difference, okay, between somebody who's just this is who they are and through somebody who's just faking it as a means through which to gain access to children or to gain access to being a better groomer or to delete their old record as a former gender and then be untraceable as the new gender, because that's kind of become the new way for like a sex offender to get away with things. Suddenly a person that used to be known under their sex offender name that they have to register as, well, now they can change their gender and they're no longer registered as the same name they were before. It's become cover for people who have those type of predilections. So guys, you have to be aware of these things. And I've been warning about this exact technique for a long time. And where do you think it comes from? I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, go look at some speeches by SAIC CEO Nazi King. That's her name. If you want to know where fake names come from, I don't know, maybe go watch some presentations by Nazi King and see like if you think that she's a real CEO and really running a multi-million-dollar organization. Because when I look at these people, I again, like they seem like they're the CEO, they smile in the camera and everything like that, but are they? No. These are crisis actors. And that's why I did the presentation yesterday about, you know, trying to get into the whole Elon thing. It's like, you guys, you don't see how what you're getting right now was part of the FBI's plan. They knew they were stealing the election from everybody's, you know, like perception wise, you get either way you turned, you weren't going to get what you wanted. But people wanted the other fake guy better. They wanted, sorry guys, I mean, you don't have to like it. And you don't have to say that you're a Trump fan to know this. But more people in this country voted for Trump. Fact. Okay? Fact. More people wanted him. They knew that Biden Harris was a fucking disaster. They did not want drunk ass Nancy Pelosi to be just like, you know, one or two much desired like people like with itchy trigger fingers away from being the president. Because let's face it, guys like Biden and Kamala Harris, they kind of inspire that. But see, this is almost like they had this all set up to where nobody would want to, because look what's waiting on the other side. You know, what kind of group has that much resources where they have to take out 3 fucking people? It was kind of genius what they did. You see how it stalls and lags anybody wanting to remove a corrupt president, because the only really route that you have is to say, well, the election was shit. It didn't actually happen the way everybody thought it did. But then still you have your candidates brought to you by NBC. Better option than the one you got now, maybe, but it's still brought to you by NBC. Isn't it weird? No matter which way we turn when we have an alternative, it still comes from NBC. Cenk Uygur left MSNBC. Crystal Ball, who's now running The Hill and that whatever that's Talking Points show or whatever it is, yeah, she was on MSNBC. Trump, the president, had The Apprentice on NBC. What the fuck, guys? How come is it like when it's not mainstream media and we go to the alt circles, it's like it's a division of NBC? Hey, I'm your new alternative. Don't worry, I got you covered. NBC. Wow. But we still haven't figured it out because it's been happening to us for so long. It's MK Ultra. And guys, when I say MK Ultra, let me explain to you what it means. It means ultra high frequency. We are resonant beings of frequency, just like the documentary says. And so what I learned, and the reason why I took a hiatus from the wireless industry, is that yes, in fact, there does appear to have been a deliberate Nazification of some of the technology that causes a separation between human brainwave and Earth brainwave. And I think the people at these little Bell Lab type companies that are designing it probably knew that, because the whole point of doing that, they would have an understanding. Number one, they would want to hide that fact from us because we would do the research eventually and go, hey, wait a second. GSM uses this hertz tone that's right around 8 hertz, and that's right around where human brainwave is, and that's right around where the Earth resonance is. Like, why are you using that? It just seemed like the number. I don't know. Yeah, but you could have used a whole bunch. Like, you didn't have to. That wasn't the ideal one. You could have used a bunch of different signals. But you had to go there. See, again, I started looking into what the brainwave was. What the Earth resonance was. I started realizing that, yeah, everything that we exist in truly is universal plasma, and that everything that we're looking at right now is an experience being sent through that plasma, a series of frequencies that we interpret as reality. And the people that do this to us actually know that. And the sooner we all know it and know how to do things to counteract it, the better. And so what I say here is that, in America, you have to find a way to amplify the truth, the actual truth, without going through all the standard channels. And so within America, I would say it's part of our national defense. It's critical to our defense at this point to actually gain control over some of the media. I don't mean like, whatever, but something's got to happen, guys, where some of these organizations just have to be recognized as criminal, that they're not even attempting, guys, to entertain us or inform us, that they have weaponized their technology against us. They're using psychoenergetic and psychotronic methods. And there should be some discussion about what that looks like and whether or not we choose to take those messages in, and whether or not we choose to allow what they do with those technologies to actually be done to us, because we're not usually made aware of it. It's a little bit like those ads that they do, with medications, where there's like going, take, everything's great, sir. Everything great, sir, will solve all your problems. They make your head bleed and you're like, it might make you die. What? I think you just said might make me die in there, didn't you? No, we didn't say that. It's like Subliminal Guy, the Kevin Nealon character on Saturday Night Live. All right. So yeah, good comments. Yes, and that's pretty much what they're doing, guys. Like what we're getting right now is like the Department of Energy is going like nuclear fusion. Oh yeah, by the way, Sam Brinton's gone. Here you go, guys. For those of you who are thinking it just like me. I think it's funny personally, but I don't know if any guys saw World Police, but if you did, that'll make sense. If you didn't see Team America World Police, then that joke won't make any sense. But if you did, that should make a lot of sense. Anyways, guys, okay, I'll try to keep it serious now. Sorry about that. Got to have a little bit of humor in there, though. All right. So let's talk about, how did Sam Brinton even get in to a job that is involving disposal of spent nuclear waste? You know that vitrification thing I was just telling you about, guys? All right. So I didn't mean to like drop that story. I apologize. So vitrification, what I was trying to explain to you guys is that what I was told is the reason why like the whole world, or even America, let alone, is a Swiss cheese type tunnel system underneath, and why it is that way, and it shouldn't be hard to believe, is because number one, it's suppressed technology that they don't discuss in official projects that are used in shallow Earth. So like the things that are done in most of these highway projects or whatever else like that, and what like Elon's in charge of using boring tunnel. Okay, those are falsifications of the technology. Those are literally dumbed down, lacking in innovations that are supposed to be there to make you think that they're innovative. So that's a trend with Elon. Nearly everything he does is a known, like, to people that like have a greater understanding and deep dive on these types of free energy things, and like, what's really going on in space, what's really going on with energy. And again, I'm not talking about any sort of like, just believing tinfoil hat theories. I mean, where we can actually quote research studies, actually show you white papers, patents. Like, we're those kind of people, right? And he seems to be always in charge of the narratives of dumbed down technology. So Tesla's not the best way to do an electric car. It's a very dirty form of an electric car. It should be more renewable than it is. It should not need to require so many materials that are earth materials, but it does. And that's a bastardization of the concept by design. It's making something that should be clean very dirty. Now, tunneling, again, this is something that actually he's showing us actually a cleaner form of it, ironically, but a less effective form. And the true method of tunneling that I'm sure his company also does without letting you know. There's all like boring tunnel is a cover for the real tunnel projects, which are the things going on underground. And what I was actually told was, guys, is nearly any time that they make reference to Mars exploration, they're really talking about drilling to certain parts underneath here. When they say they're going to go to the moon exploration, it's really a reference to different points that are in inner Earth. So they actually will separate them into regions. And so they trick people into saying, like, fund this project that involves something, like that's next to the moon. But that project is actually there to fund the underground tunneling system that's actually doing things there. Why do you think that we don't have anybody going anymore? Because they're spending the money on underground systems and telling us that they're deploying hundreds of satellites and doing all this groundbreaking research and showing us this little bullshit show that isn't really happening. And what's that protecting? Why would this be going on? Uranium, uranium, nuclear fuel, uranium, and the global interest in keeping that a secret. Because the people that are connected deeply within nuclear industry, I've learned very frequently, not exclusively and not always. I'm not saying they're all bad. I am telling you that it is very, very common for people that get deep into nuclear at a high level, especially ones that are close to the weaponization and support the weaponization and have a deep, deep love of nuclear as a source of energy, right? A lot of those people are also heavily involved in dark occult activities and dark occult societies, and people that are into some dark sexual predilections in many cases, because the sexual predilections that you think are just kinks and fetishes actually represent sexual magic or ritualistic magic to the people that are doing it. I would argue Sam Brinton manufactured a lot of what's going on here simply so that he would be permanently etched inside your memory. And then that creates a psychoenergetic loop between you and Sam Brinton. Look at look at the images, guys. Like, I don't honestly, I can't even imagine that unless you were somebody that looked like Sam Brinton, that there would be any reason to find somebody like Sam Brinton attractive. So yeah, if you're the kind of person that also equally doesn't want to be binary and wants to have a mustache and wear women's shoes and shit, but basically look like a guy and, I don't know, wear lipstick at the same time, then you might find somebody like that attractive. But like this notion that others need to, or we're somehow bigoted if we don't, or we're unaccepting, or I don't know. I mean, this whole notion that we have to buy into even the pronoun thing, I think, is a misnomer. I think it's fine if you guys want to call yourselves that, but having this rigid need to have everybody else do it is unreasonable. I'll give you an example, guys. My name is actually Justin Gabriel. That's actually my name. So I tell you my name's Gabe or Gabriel, okay? But it's actually Justin is spelled Justi with an accent N. Gabriel. So it's Spanish technically. But I really don't speak fluent Spanish. I speak some. And even though I've got Mexican lineage and things like that, I mean, I spent enough time around it, but not to the point where I would be running around going, you know, Me llamo Justin Gabriel Cruz. No, I mean, I don't have an accent because I was basically raised in the suburbs and went, to schools that was multicultural or primarily around, white suburbanites. So that's what I was raised in. That was my environment. That's what I was around. So that's my life experience, and that's what I relate to overall for the most part. What I'm suggesting though is that what I think what he did, I think, in this particular case though is this is partly ritualistic, and my guess is his fetish involves being seen publicly in these photos with the stolen clothes. So a lot of these things that you've been seeing is all these like publicity photos where he looks like kind of goofy and is wearing all these different outfits and lipstick and shit. But there's women's outfits and pantsuits. I would bet money. I would bet money those are stolen clothes almost entirely. The ones that he posed in the photos. They were trolling the victims because these people are wizards. The people that are at his level, they don't do this for no reason. I'll tell you what's going on. It's the same reason why like abusers like to create energy links and troll their victims. Like real serious child abusers, they want lifelong energy links. They want to like have like if you ever watch that documentary, oh shit, what's the name of it? The one about Digital Entertainment Network, An Open Secret. You'll notice that all the groomers in Hollywood, it was like important for them to maintain links into adulthood with their child victims in some cases, and they knew that they risked being exposed. And some of them had frank discussions and got surveillanced, talking to their victims and everything like that about, openly just basically talking about molesting them when they were boys. There's they like these energy links like that. They want that person to be thinking about them. And the pain association with the event, the physical pain association with it, and then the confusion of the emotions they went through by having a person that was a trusted adult in their lives doing it to them. I know, because there's not just wizards that do this, there's witches that do it to boys too. They want that early energy link. And so I would argue that this is kind of an extension of his kink. Is he enjoys taking things from people and then poking at them as an energy link. And when somebody has that going on, it usually extends into their sexuality. When they like sneaking and taking in that way, they like probably sneaking and taking in the other way when they are that much of a public display of it. So I find the guy completely shady inside and out all around. And to me, when I saw that he was assigned to spent nuclear waste, it did not surprise me. I was like, that's just like the Department of Energy. That's exactly what I would expect them to do right now. Because when you guys start to decrypt what's going on in America deeper, like I've given you some pretty deep dives this week, but you're going to find that lab, that same one, SAIC and Leidos. Okay, so there's another group. Once you get past that little ecosystem of SAIC, Leidos, and Dynetics, then you get into Battelle. Battelle is a nonprofit that manages the Department of Energy, basically. And so I would argue anymore, we really don't have a DOE that's really in the interest of America. It's a Department of Energy that has been contracted to Battelle, and then Battelle decides who amongst the deep state players to get all the business and who they distribute it to. And I would argue that there's significant infrastructure hacking going on and a protected network within those infrastructure hacks where there's private data networks hidden within our infrastructure. This I already know, that are energy related. What do I mean by that? There's like the power poles and the wire infrastructure that's that we all use in common has backdoors built into it to transmit information and data over a private network that people like Sam Brinton get to use. If that helps you understand why they would want to keep it private and where it gets routed to and who's using it. Because they'll create a premise, guys, that's official in government, but secret. Guys, we need this in case we have an infrastructure failure. Hey guys, we need this so we can monitor the power settings. Hey guys, we need this so it'll always be done for some other reason that they get everybody in America to pay for. Now you have the connection. So when I tell you it's infrastructure related, I mean they do those things through underground networks. So your plumbing, your power, things that get routed underground, public works relationships. How are those managed? Like who goes underneath into the sewage systems? What communication systems exist down there? What tunnel systems exist? How do they connect to the other network that I've discussed? Now you're getting into these like networks that are in Portland and Oregon and Astoria, where I just was, where they have Shanghai tunnels and extensive trafficking tunnels that have existed going back over 100 years. So if they've been going on for that long, and now they have modern ways of drilling tunnels using vitrification, I'm going to get back into that, then you must know, guys, what I mean by that is there's this guy, Paul Schneider. You can take him, leave him. Like, I don't know if the guy's legit, but I do know he had some information that resonates as true. And one of them was in in how the underground tunneling system works, because he didn't even have the words for it. Like, I think I can actually give you words that Paul Schneider wasn't giving you to help fill in the gaps on how he described the tunnel system. But yeah, they were able to drill. He talked about them being able to drill like 1 to 2 miles per day, and that they have a process that's more sophisticated than what we use above ground. And I think that what it is, it's not even thinking anymore. I've been given this multiple times. We're like, this is what it is. So just say it. So again, I don't know. I can't show you a clip of how it works, guys. I've just been told this. But the drill goes underground. So it's like, if you remember Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I've never seen the remake, but when they're in the Mars tunnels or wherever they are, there's these drills that circle like this, boom, 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 like a standard old school drill. So it has some degree of this sort of like hammer, drill, like that's used in old school ones, like a little bit that way with blades and everything. But they've integrated really high power magnetic resonance that is generated at a high power that nuclear is required for. So they've learned how to, what I'm told is, guys, is again, I don't know. So remember this, but this should resonate as at least being true, at least, or it should at least fill in some gaps. Okay. That the spent nuclear waste can be fed into this drilling machine like a fuel, and that it recycles it by using it to create like this crude form of magnetic resonance. That's the only thing it's good for doing. Like, it can generate it as fuel, like this, like at a really, really high power. And that combined with the hammering of the drill just pulverizes the shit out of the rock. But the vibration does more than just make it easier to drill. It literally hammers it into a fine powder that mixes in. So as the spent nuclear waste is getting respent, it doesn't wind up as old fuel again, where they have to recycle it or place it into some container. It actually converts into a glassified shellac that goes around the drill. And so they're going through the tunnel, and then that gets integrated into the tunnel system and turned into this glass that is not, allegedly, is non-toxic and won't affect the people that are in there, because it's been permanently glassed into the materials. Is that true? I don't know. I wouldn't want to be in it. But the point is to gain access to tunnels that are like deep underground, those are typically top secret access and require, what are called Q clearances. And Q clearances are provided by the Department of Energy for, again, access to top secret projects. And so the minute the whole QAnon thing started, I was immediately suspicious, because I'm going, oh, guys. Disclosure brought to you by the Department of Energy's Q clearance labs. Congratulations, guys. You're not really going to get all of it, but you'll get a lot, just like you're getting with Elon. Guys, in fact, let me allow you to, please let me present this as an idea to you. Those of you who are quick to buy QAnon are probably the same ones who will be quick to buy into Elon. And you'll follow it all the way down the rabbit hole for the same reasons. It's this hope and this type of thing that you're, and again, it's not rooted in something fake, and it's not like it's completely like they're giving you something that's very, very real, but they're shadowing, they're hiding the person that's actually doing it. I would argue, guys, that I was giving you way more than QAnon, and I still do. Always have been. And most nearly all of that community ignored me. And I actually interacted with some of the high power, some of the ones that were actually like kind of heavy up there. Some of them actually wrote me back a couple times or interacted with me or chatted with me on Twitter or whatever, but they never would amplify my material. They would never integrate me into their communities. They would always kind of keep me like, oh, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, patriots are on it. Don't you worry. No, the patriots weren't on it. Yeah, you're right. They're gatekeepers. And so they position themselves as gatekeepers because again, they know that it's done, guys. They're over. So now they need to be your hero. They're going to make it to where people that helped facilitate the con on you are going to be people that when somebody comes after them, that you fight for their freedom because you really don't understand what happened. And of course, they're going to position all of each other as your selected heroes that you have to go through to submit your new information to. And then they're going to decide if it's actually disclosure. And then the rest of us who have been groomed into this whole, well, if it didn't come through Elon, Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss, and whoever else he's going to select for the next round, I guess it's not true. And by the way, I don't have a beef with Matt Taibbi or Barry Weiss. I don't really know their work that well. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're like mockingbird journalists because I've never seen something from them to indicate that. I don't follow them and I don't read it. So, but I do think it's interesting that I do know that at least one of them, that being Matt Taibbi, is a definite 9/11 denier. And that's known by a lot of folks. Like that, he's the kind of guy that says like you're all tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, and speculating is damaging to this and that. So people that take that type of rigid posture on it, you should at least be open to it if you're going to be legit with me. I mean, it's one of those things where like if somebody tells me like I don't see the SAIC connection, Gabe, I go bye. If you don't see it, goodbye. Then you're not paying attention. I'm wasting my time with you. Then come back when you see it. And if you can find compelling reasons for me to like, not see it, pun intended. Jeez. Anyways. All right, so let's get into some of the material. I'm going to play a video for you, I think, because what I want you to kind of get deeper into is knowing who are the architects of our fuckery in America. Like who really like skewed the idealized American dream into this sort of Nazi occulted nightmare that is like Aleister Crowley's wet dream. I shouldn't say that actually, guys. I know some people that have alternative perspectives on who Aleister Crowley is, and he could have been another one of those people that has a whole separate history that made him into something that he wasn't. I don't really know. I'm not going to say that one person's story is more legit than the other, except to say that I have heard alternative theories, even including some people that are more middle ground and don't study these things as deeply, but they actually offered some more rational histories to actually how he was and said that some of the things that are said about him are really exaggerated. But I'm not down with the guy, just so you know. I'm not an apologist for him any more than I am like guys like Aquino. But I do think it's important to understand what Crowley does. It's important to understand what Aquino does. And if you don't get that it's more than just costume magic that these guys were doing, in fact, I don't think anything that Aleister Crowley did was costume magic. Not really. I mean, it's some degree. Ritualistic, like he wore robes and he had symbols, but I wouldn't say that's costume. I would say Anton LaVey was costume magic. He integrated his physical appearance into being more of a looking like a devil. He was doing that with intention. That's costume magic. He's trying to influence you. He's trying to pull something from you through his actual physical presence and what he wears and how he looks. But yeah, so what I'm saying is that there's always been, since the inception of nuclear and since we began to accept this idea of world domination through mutual destruction, a completely insane, bizarre idea, but we all started to buy into it during the Cold War with the help heavily of the Nazis. Again, being groomed into hating. And it's not to say we didn't have challenges with Russia before, guys, but we were at least like partners on some things. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but during World War II, we invited Pavlichenko. She was a female sniper from Ukraine, of all places. Actually, she was Ukrainian born, but she served in the Soviet Union's army, and she was a military sniper that even what is it Woody Guthrie made a song, or no, Guthrie. Is it Woody Guthrie? Why do I get his name wrong? Hang on, let me look this up and make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, Woody Guthrie. Pavlichenko. I think I spelled this wrong. Yeah, Miss Pavlichenko. But there's a say. I'm not going to. I don't want to like actually let the song play too much over it or whatever. But like, this is actually like a video somebody did for Miss Pavlichenko because Woody Guthrie actually sang a song about her at one time. So just thought that was worth mentioning. Hey, welcome there. Appreciate you joining. All right. So I'm going to start getting into, it's good timing actually, because I've been mostly going over things that a lot of folks that watch the channel kind of know already. So I'm going to get more into the specifics about nuclear things. And you'll probably find this interesting, Fred, being somebody who's near Hanford Nuclear Reservation. So I was just explaining that basically that there's occulted roots within nuclear, and you really can't separate occult religion from nuclear. I just don't think you can. I think these two things are way too interlinked and way too intertwined. And maybe, Fred, I think it's kind of cool that you're here actually, because maybe you can speak to this, that Eastern Washington, despite being a pretty, like I grew up there in the 80s, for example. I was there between 1985 to 1989 as a kid. And yeah, it's a very conservative area once you get out into the rural parts. I actually rode the school bus with girls that were from like German Baptist backgrounds that still dressed like Amish, like the sort of Amish like garb and under the same traditions and rules. The German Baptists have some similar traditions. And so a lot of people that, not a lot, but we at least had a significant community of people that had those types of old school values that were near us. And I used to actually know them. They were in my school yearbooks and everything. And so I had that kind of, in the 80s, being a child that's kind of on the cusp of what's going on now and the old school way and the new school way. I mean, I was right there riding the wave of the transition, hell, that phone that we had out there on the farm when I lived in Eastern Washington was a party line. I mean, the phone that we used as our main to do all the family business, the farm business and everything was a shared phone line. We shared it with another farm because they had so few copper lines being delivered out there for telecommunications that the only thing you could get unless you paid a shit ton of money was what's called a party line. And you had to share party lines with the other farms. So they could usually split it between two farms, but sometimes you'd actually have to share a party line with a few different groups. So, I mean, imagine that. You're trying to have every phone call is split between, you and somebody else. And when you're on the phone, all the other farm has to do is pick up their phone and they can listen to what you're talking about. That's why I get a kick out of watching old Alfred Hitchcock episodes, because there was like people that were in party line environments and you can see them doing that exact thing, and there was actually a whole episode of a lady that does this in her neighborhood. She's always like picking it up and listening to the neighbors' conversations. So yeah, like even though like I look like this, guys, like I actually got to experience some really seriously old school shit, like especially out there in Eastern Washington. That's when I really got like, man, wow, like you can really live in like a whole different era of arcane communication. I actually wound up coming back to that same neighborhood. I grew up in Eltopia. I'm sure you know where that is. It's like a little town to this day, it probably doesn't have more than 100, 200 people in it. And I actually put it was a pre-existing tower, but I actually was able to deliver high-speed data to that town that I used to live in that, only had a party line. And I was the guy that was the engineer that delivered EVDO 3G data to that area. So it's like, to me, that was like something I was really proud of at the time, because I was like, damn, when I was living here, you had to make a party line call on a home phone line. Now you can not only make a wireless call on any of these farms out here, but you can do a high-speed data session and watch even a video without it glitching. I was pretty proud of myself. Because guys, look, even though we disagree with how maybe it propagates, that does help economies. Like, if you can't make a cell phone call someplace, people don't want to go there. The minute a cell tower goes up and everybody knows they can go out there and make cell phone calls, suddenly the hotels start getting filled up. Suddenly the restaurants start getting filled up. Suddenly people start going to the campgrounds. They start traveling the roads and buying things from the farms and the fruits and everything else like that. So it does make a big difference, you know. So I don't know. I just want to find some way to make that work for everybody, guys. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the right kind of propagation is, but I know I'm a person that's open to having the discussion. See, and again, I won't be called the devil or evil for any of the work I did in wireless up until that point, because it's always been done with the idea that, we kept people safer because they were able to make calls in places they could not before. And I'm telling you, I know that it kept people safer, because a lot of the places that I put towers in, people don't spend a lot of time in. They don't actually hang out near the tower and for a long sets of time. They just travel past it. And to me, that's like the best use of wireless interface is like highways where like that are dangerous. You'd want to have some degree of wireless interface available on all those areas, but just for that reason, it's minimal exposure as far as frequency goes. But the balance, always doing like a real balance between human cost at a frequency level versus what's the cost of not having anything available in a canyon, for example. Do you mind having a little bit of exposure to a frequency if it's like just temporary and you pass right through it really quickly? Or do you want to take the risk that maybe someday you pass through there that you can't make a call? I mean, because that was kind of the environment for a long time in these rural areas that I served. And so I don't know what the right answer is, guys. I just know that there's a lot of people that are like me, that if you give them more information and it's good and it's solid and they know that it's legit and it's coming from another engineer like me. I'm not a degreed engineer, but I did official engineering work and actually did network designs and tower designs. So as far as what could qualify as a person as doing engineering, it wasn't like I was throwing that title on the job to be fancy. Like, it was a real engineering gig. I used design software. I actually designed things, and they trained me to do it from the ground up. I started that job with just a high school education, barely. So it's anyways. Um, so we're not talking about that kind of radiation, though. That's non-ionizing. Tonight we're talking more about ionizing nuclear radiation concepts. So I'm going to show you this really quick here. Let me get this slide going a little bit. Funny, actually, if you guys watched my presentation the other night, uh, maybe I'll just do this for humor's sake, but I showed you that, I told you that sometimes my life starts to like transition into like the movies that I watch. And then I'm not even trying to do it all the time, but I wind up passing by a film location. So there's a scene in Naked Gun with Leslie Nielsen where he says, "Seems like everywhere I go, something reminds me of her." Well, I found myself in kind of a similar situation when I was traveling through Southern California a little over a year ago. And well, I'll just play the clip for you because it's just funny. Oh, that's a great freeze frame. Man, what the hell? All right. Hope that didn't make me lose my credibility with you guys on taking me seriously, but it was kind of funny because that's a nuclear facility. That's why it showed up in my search results. And I was kind of like, man, I watched Naked Gun like 100 times easily. So they're hitting the sound again. Hmm. All right. Well, what I'm trying to do to like combat that problem this time is just shut down as many of the like extras that are on the screen as I can, and I don't think I have anything that like is real that's hogging my resources at the moment. So hopefully things are back to normal. But yeah, so here's some more clips. If you just go and look up nuclear, okay. Yeah, that's a bandwidth issue. Then it's probably not the audio. It's probably because they're throttling the bandwidth from me playing the clip. Um, but the Pied Pipers of nuclear waste, Hanford Nuclear to Rocky Flats, plutonium accidents or warnings. Who sells rogue electronic and nuclear MAG X-ray weapons? Who makes them? Um, the Outer Limits series analysis and timeline EMF discussion, guys. That's a big one when it comes to talking about these topics, because I think that the outer limits was one of the ways that the nuclear industry used to pass information back and forth regarding nuclear projects. So yeah, if I keep having problems, guys, like don't be so like if something happens tonight, just so you know, this has been kind of a trend. I have a way to get around it, but like if the screen goes black, just give it about a minute or so, and I'll probably be right back on, because there's a few different ways that I can hop on the Wi-Fi, or if it completely fails on me, I have another way to do it, but it sometimes takes a second to set up. So I have it all ready to go as a backup in case I need to, but just bear with me, guys, because it's, you know, especially when I get into these topics, my streams get really jammed for whatever reason. I have no idea. It could just be regular Wi-Fi issues. I'm not saying it's always, you know, some shenanigans, but I've done quite a bit of material though, guys. Like if you're ever curious, just look up nuclear inside my channel and you'll see all these different clips about underground bases. This one actually you might find interesting because I've actually done I actually show quite a few diagrams of the underground silos. If you want to see things like that, just let me know. I can play that one for you too in a second. Um, but I think what I wanted to do was just show you a quick thread that I did here a couple years ago. And I said, this is my latest piece on Operation Paperclip Nazis in America, the Scientology connection between L. Ron Hubbard, Aleister Crowley, Marjorie Cameron, and Jack Parsons. And so I'm going to play this clip and hopefully it doesn't mess up on me. That's been the problem, guys. I think they're just trying to prevent me from playing my old material for whatever reason. So if it does jam, I'll just actually, let me see if I can close that one. Operation. Okay. So I'm going to get it to where it cues a little bit while I'm talking to you here. So that way the buffering will, you know, already be in there and maybe it'll be less of a problem. But so this is a thread I did a couple years ago when I was learning more about this whole connection to Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, of all people. Those unfamiliar, L. Ron Hubbard is pretty much the Jesus of Scientology. So you'll often hear Scientologies refer to LRH, and that means L. Ron Hubbard. And L. Ron Hubbard, look, you know, I'm not trying to offend anybody who holds Scientology near and dear to them and hasn't figured out, you know, that most of these things that we've all been made to believe is bogus. But so I'm not trying to pick on them specifically, except that, you know, quite a few groups are sometimes founded on people who have some challenging histories. And if they can present something to me that says to me that what I'm saying is not true about L. Ron Hubbard, then I'll be happy to present an alternative narrative. But up until now, it's usually just shut up. No, that didn't happen. And there's nothing else to it. But I just don't believe that. L. Ron Hubbard had his hands in all kinds of things, including sex magic rituals with not Aleister Crowley. He had sex magic rituals he was performing with Jack Parsons, who was an early rocket science, a rocket fuel pioneer in America. He's basically at the core of NASA. So what basically makes NASA possible was the innovations in rocket fuel. So had Jack Parsons not made the innovations with rocket fuels at the times that he had, then NASA wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that they did. So von Braun was like a benefactor of what happened relative to NASA and launching things, you know, and other technologies. A lot of that began through the innovations of Jack Parsons, who had a close relationship with Aleister Crowley. Okay. Aleister Crowley basically thought of Jack Parsons as like a second, like his son or something like that, and that he said that if he ever moved on or passed away, that he would consider Jack Parsons to be the head of the sex magic religion, Ordo Templi Orientis. And so that's actually, there's lodges that are still all over the world today of Ordo Templi Orientis. Quite a few people are Crowleyites and think very highly of him. And so again, I'm always trying to be conscious and aware because I've been presented with alternative theories on Aleister Crowley. So before I say this, you guys, I just want you to know is that I believe that Aleister Crowley gets used for dark occult purposes, but I really don't honestly know what his intentions were, and I'm not going to pretend to. So to be clear, I don't think that everybody who's in OTO or Golden Dawn is a dark person or does something that's in the abuse or trauma cycles. Okay. Let me be extremely clear about that. I don't think that of them. Okay. In fact, I know for a fact that there's at least some out there that absolutely are not like that. So, but they do believe in things that are close as far as like how you manifest things in the physical reality using sexual energy. And so that's something that is actually a thing. And so if it is a thing, then certainly there's going to be people who seek out ways to practice that, and they're going to have others to do it, unless otherwise their magic isn't going to be what it's supposed to be, right? It'd be by themselves. Sex magic doesn't quite work that way. I mean, to a degree it does, but not entirely. So yeah, they have others that they have to practice with. And so you have to find groups that you have common values and whatever else with, and then hence why there's Golden Dawn and OTO. So I don't think that all these people are negative. I just think sometimes they recognize that sexual orgasm has a binding factor to it within the science of energetics. So what I would argue sex magic really is, when you break it down scientifically, is that you, at the moment of orgasm, the human generates bions that I think they're charged exponentially with the experience at the moment, and I think that the bions that are formed are have a larger degree of whatever, so that when you're actually emitting the sweat and everything else like that, you're not just sweating, you're not just going through the physical act, you actually have your thoughts, your values, everything you're concentrating and focusing on are contained in the bions that are emitting from your skin, and that goes into the etheric cloud, the aura, the biofield, and then goes off into the ionosphere, and it merges with other bions. And so again, yes, I mean the sexual orgasm and the act is extremely important, that you give it the credit for the actual importance that it has, and that you be conscious and aware of what you're thinking about, and that it's better that you're not in a traumatized state, that you're not in a situation where you're unhappy, or not in a situation where you're just sort of whatever. Like, it's important actually that the people that are dark occultists, that's why they have so much emphasis on traumatizing a person using sex. So to be clear, guys, before I play this, because I do say things in there that sort of like discuss people using Crowleyite methods within abuse networks, just to be clear, I don't think Crowley equals abuse, okay? But I think that Crowleyism and Crowley methods have been integrated into abuse networks, and that's what I was trying to articulate into this into this article, okay? But without a doubt, and I think even Crowleyites would have to admit to this, the ones that are on the nicer side, you guys must know there's quite a few dark personalities in that group, okay? And that they're not on the up and up, and they're not cool people. And so let's all just be real with one another and try to find a happy balance between values and whatever. So I'm doing my best here to be fair to folks, as all, guys, okay? And be reasonable with the way I evaluate things. And I don't see everything as that black and white. So, all right, I'm going to start playing this clip. Like that, nuclear missiles, other types of missiles, and Jack Parsons' invention of jet fuel, or rather mastering of jet fuel to propel these missiles, his relationship with Aleister Crowley.
Jack Parsons, when he was younger, was very interested in the occult. This transitioned into him eventually getting into contact with Aleister Crowley, and they became friends. Eventually, as an adult, Jack Parsons became the #2 adept inside the sex magic cult of OTO. So all of these people at the same time were sort of experimenting with these occult practices, and they got involved with L. Ron Hubbard.
Folks, let me know if you can't hear the audio. I made sure to switch it over to the alternate speaker so that it can't get filtered the same way it did the other day. But if you're hearing it good, if not, let me know.
Those of you unfamiliar, L. Ron Hubbard became the founder of the Church of Scientology. And, again, they're a pretty controversial church. They've had quite a few issues. A lot of people have accused them of being involved with mind control, separating people from their families, and going to some pretty extreme lengths to keep members inside the church. If you're unfamiliar, you may want to watch a documentary called Scientologists at War and look into what they call the Squirrel Patrol. It's very, very similar to what a lot of people associate with the term gang stalking. It's basically where they send people out to effectively harass you everywhere you go, and they just torment you constantly. They film everything you're doing. They send people to lie about your reputation and disinform on you. And in more modern times, they've been accused of being hackers that hack people's smartphones. And this would be consistent with things that in my research that I've seen. Keeping in mind, guys, I spent quite a bit of time in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is a huge Scientology stronghold. But a lot of people that are in the Church of Scientology don't really understand that their founder, L. Ron Hubbard, was a pretty high-ranking occultist at one time, or rather dabbled in the occult with some pretty high-level people. Aleister Crowley admired Jack Parsons quite a bit, and so they were great friends. But my understanding of it from reading history was that Aleister Crowley did not like L. Ron Hubbard, and there was a time when, towards the end of Jack Parsons' life, those unfamiliar, he did find was heavily involved with JPL, founded JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab. The research from Jet Propulsion Lab wound up becoming integrated into what our modern NASA program is for space travel. And so effectively, a lot of these Nike, rather than not Nike, but Titan and Polaris missiles are basically names that are inspired by Jack Parsons, but they have roots back to Aleister Crowley. I found in a documentary that Aleister Crowley called himself the Titan, on top of being called the 666, the Beast. He also called himself Titan. Then we had a Titan missile program and a Polaris missile program. Okay, so effectively.
So really quick, guys, I don't mean to sound like a little bit too hey, one Titan must equal the other Titan. No, it's not that simple, and I'm not that simple-minded. What I mean to say is that if you kind of understand what these people were really doing with ritual practice, the very fact that he was creating the rocket fuel may have a lot more to do with his occult belief systems and his religion in ritualistic magic, creating the event of the explosion, creating the event of the actual fuel that made the fire burn. That's really what actually motivated Jack Parsons. He was an occultist from a very early age. He was into the occult since his teens. He was rebelling against his parents. They were more moral and religious, and he was like trying to get into Satanism and all kinds of occult societies when he was in high school still. So, and again, that transitioned also into him having kind of a brilliant mind at the same time and designing all of these different things and involving rockets. So he got started pretty early, and Aleister Crowley he did actually have a very strong, almost father-son type relationship with him. So, and again, guys, what I mean to say is that the purpose of naming a missile after a guy like Crowley would be because that's a way for them to ride the frequency. That's a way for him to actually get some energy from an explosion. It's like putting his name on it. It's like a watermark of, okay, so whenever that missile lands someplace and explodes and all these people die, that ritual sacrifice of the word Titan will be binded. It'll draw the energy of the sacrifice towards the person that calls themselves Titan. All the ones using the name Titans or have organizations called Titan, or who just like use it on or put it on their shoulder or look at it every day and apply it to themselves, they get to ride the energy of Titan as a word, as a momentum play, because there's trauma based bions that emit from the explosion, from the people. I would argue this is a science-based process that involves high-level psychoenergetics. They know that it steals away the life energy from people when they create one of these events. And so again, where do those bions go? It's almost like labeling the missile Titan. It actually creates a watermark for those bions to be attached to. I ain't saying that it has to work that way, but it's about what they believe in. Why would they name it something that was close to a nickname that he used? Jack Parson was close to him. The fuel winds up in these missiles, and they start naming it after the high ranking occultist that inspired the guy who gave them their fuel. So there is a link, if you ask me.
What really kind of what I want to concentrate on with this particular article was that towards the end of Jack Parsons' life, as he began to dismantle, he started this sex magic ritual called the Babylon Working. It was inspired by Aleister Crowley's book, The Moon Child, where they were effectively trying to invoke a child, I guess you could say, of Satan, however you want to interpret that, that would be one of the first to travel to the moon. This is prior to us ever having gone to the moon, okay? And that Aleister Crowley became, as a high-level occultist, guys, keep in mind Aleister Crowley was involved with very extreme behaviors, very occult, very dark behaviors. And he himself, when he saw what Jack Parsons was doing with this Moonchild and Babylon Working ritual, he basically warned them that this was a bad idea and took a step away and didn't want to have anything to do with it. But Jack Parsons, Marjorie Cameron, and L. Ron Hubbard, they proceeded with it, in addition to some others that, are some pretty important families that went on to form some early defense companies. The point is, though, is that when Jack Parsons began to dismantle, it was as a result of, towards the end of his life, participating in this Moonchild ritual, this Babylon Working with Marjorie Cameron and L. Ron Hubbard. It was pretty explicit, you guys. L. Ron Hubbard did things like watch them have sex as part of these things. It was kind of it was part of all the sex magic that they were doing. I'm not a person that practices sex magic or anything, so I couldn't tell you what the exact rituals were or what their intention was. But the point of it is effectively that they were trying to create a child through a ritual that would, I guess you could say, like be like an immaculate conception, similar to like a reversal on the story of the Bible where, Jesus is born to the mother Mary, without there being procreation or being an actual act of sex. But in this case, it would be a child born through sex magic ritual, but it wouldn't be through the actual process of, having sex. It would just be through the sex magic ritual. And this is all relevant, guys, because you need to kind of understand that we have this in our country's history, that there were people that are engaged in sex magic. It did form a lot of the ideologies that were connected to NASA, and that a lot of this was tied into those Operation Paperclip Nazis like Werner von Braun. And, it's just concerning to me. And I feel like it's something that we haven't really addressed in our country because we really don't acknowledge this level of occultism. It's sort of like kind of buried away and hidden. And we really should be talking more openly about it. I think it's especially important because a lot of people who delve into this material are accused of being conspiracy theorists or being unbalanced, when in all actuality, they have a great understanding of the real problem in our country is that this need to get this fuel that's produced via sex magic ritual, which is called vril energy or loosh or bioplasma. It's effectively that because the human body has an electrical output signal, that bioplasma would be the emission of that electricity from the human body in tandem with energy that has plasma attached to it, human plasma attached to it, which is collectible through something called a cyclotronic generator. All can be found in declassified documents if you look up the term cyclotronic generator. And I've done many articles on this, by the way, in my energetic series. You might want to look into parts 7, 8, 9 to look into that. These are the ones that I would say cover bioenergetics relative to human energy. And
So if you didn't catch what I was saying there, right there, last sentence. Space in this report does not permit a discussion of psychotronic generators devices which are reported to be able to store human bioplasmic forces for later use. So, guys, I'm getting that straight from military documentation right there. It's declassified. But There you see in black and white from the Defense Intelligence Agency, they acknowledge that there is such a thing that stores human bioplasmic forces for later use. To me, that's like the fact that that was released back in, I don't know, whatever year this report was declassified. And to this day, I say that out loud. And all kinds of people that understand what I talk about all the time, like it just goes right past, it goes right through. What I'd like that like what that translates to, if it doesn't make sense, is that's kind of like the ectoplasma trap in Ghostbusters, except your loosh, your human energy, your biofield, your bioplasma, taking it from you. So if there's people that are harvesting human bioplasmic forces that they can store and use later, are the people that are providing this human bioplasmic force giving it to them, or is it being taken from them? And if it's an energy system that takes human bioplasmic system away, probably the most effective way of taking human energy from people would be to hide it within the infrastructure of the energy, because you'd want it like in the walls, right? Department of Energy filled with a bunch of weird occultists that troll the shit out of us all the time. Hello, it's me. Hi, fam. Yeah, people are starting to catch on. It's over. So, I mean, there's people that can confess and get it all over with, and or they can keep acting like this shit didn't happen when it's all measurable and provable. Take your pick. And I know now you've got everybody distanced, like, one or two jobs away from it, but everybody knows where it leads back to. You're welcome, guys. You're welcome. I know. Don't worry. You can thank me later. But guys, this is the intersection here. This is why this is important to understand. Okay. This wasn't just any relationship. This relationship is a bigger one today that nobody seems to be conscious and aware of. I would argue that Aleister Crowley is one interest involving ritualistic sex magic and occult interests at a high level Rosicrucianism, high level OTO, Golden Dawn, Thelema, people that really, really get magic with a K. And then you've got like the Jack Parsons space travel, jet fuel, explosion worship type, more crude forms of fanboys of nuclear that are very much like Jack Parsons used to do all kinds of freaky sex magic shit. I think I want it too. Yeah, yeah, that's normal for us, right? Can you imagine all those geeky engineers out there who spend all their days trying to make things better for rocket science? That they must, get a like, they must look into the history of all their heroes that pioneered their industry and eventually learned that their main guy was a sex magician that used to be buddies with Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard. So let's get deeper into this story, guys, because you don't want to miss the rest of this.
Psychotronic generators the most. I discuss in detail things about brain waves and frequencies. I don't want to do it right now, guys, because this would just take way too long. I've already gone longer than I intended. But again, this is just a quick lesson to kind of explain to you that we do, in fact, have this in our history. It's nothing that you should roll your eyes at. We actually have missiles in our country like Polaris and Titan that are named after these high ranking occultists. Child abuse and manipulation of a child's energy in particular, because they're the easiest source to gain the energy from, and they're the most defenseless. They're the ones that are the biggest targets. And so I wanted to put this article out there because I've tried to get the attention of the FBI and other people relative to the human trafficking hotline. I did 10 stories in front of the Nevada FBI, which were all ignored, warning them about what was going on with the Polaris hotline. Because think about it, guys. All these people that were connected to Polaris and Titan early on as the founders and architects that were providing the fuel and the energy were high level occultists that practiced OTO sex magic. Now we have this record of children missing, and there appears to be psychotronic generators used on children here in this country and abroad in ways that most people don't understand and refuse to gain the education on. So it's hard to go find them and locate them where we need to. And all I've asked anybody in our government or our military or FBI to do is just to partner with me to decrypt something that's highly esoteric and very strange. And so,
Okay, so I'm going to reiterate, folks, because I know that's going to piss off some nice people that like study Aleister Crowley. Not everybody who's into Aleister Crowley is bad. Like, I'm super into Robert Anton Wilson, and he read tons of things by Aleister Crowley. He didn't worship the guy, but he did say that Aleister Crowley had some very accurate observations within his realm, and that if you study him at a purely black and white level, you learn things that Aleister Crowley knew. So I don't have an objection to people who study it at that level or anything else like that, or even get involved with his religion to some degree. I kind of understand it. But those people, all I ever ask for them to do is to at least admit that quite a few people involved with the child abuse and the darker abuse networks have co-opted OTO and Golden Dawn ritualistic things for abuse scenarios. So that's not the fault of all the people that practice OTO amongst consenting adults. And they should not be lumped in with the abuse networks. Okay. So again, I'm not OTO. I'm not trying to make excuses for them. I'm just being fair to people, guys, because I really don't want folks thinking that I'm just saying like OTO equals this. It doesn't. And liking Aleister Crowley does not equal that. It doesn't. Okay. Again, because I have a lot of respect for not only Robert Anton Wilson, but I've actually known people that actually studied Crowley at that level. And I don't think of them as dark or demonic or having problems. I don't even think that they're challenging personalities. That's just something that me and them differ on. I personally don't see the value in the guy as much. I get why people want to, but every time I get into reading his works, I get this dark resonance to it. And I want to like immediately close the book. Maybe that's my own inability to process it or something like that. Maybe I'm not ready for the challenge. And maybe some people want to say I'm not intellectual enough. Okay, maybe, I don't know. That could be, but it's off resonance to me, and I don't like to take that type of thing in when it doesn't feel right to me. Like if I'm reading about a chapter or so into something and I start feeling like it has a deeper meaning, like it's more of a spell or a hex, I try not to put it into my I don't want to absorb it because I feel like I'm giving something to it by taking in the symbols, the words. I'm giving something to Crowley that I don't really want to give him. So I don't want to make myself ignorant, but I'm also not trying to like take part in the ritual in an unwilling way, in a non-consensual way, just by simply trying to learn about it. This is always the trick when you're trying to learn about the occult. You can get into giving them the thing that they're looking for by getting you to focus and concentrate on them. So you have to sort of learn to be very clinical in out with the information. Don't get too much into loops and spirals. That's all. Absorb it, like not absorb it, but like learn about it, understand it, accept the learning or whatever, so that you know that that's a thing that you can say that that's consistent amongst this or that or that type of ritual practice and at a scientific level. But I wouldn't encourage people to get like deep into it, because especially if it makes you feel that way, because I think that there's something to that. It's charged with energy to a certain degree, and it's one that I'm personally not comfortable with. So but again, guys, I wanted to reiterate that because I am talking kind of more about my stories that I did behind the Nevada FBI, and that's exactly where I stood there in that article. I kind of deviated away from the core topic, though.
so I'm just kind of doing this to encourage you to look into my energetics research, to really understand the history of people like Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, Marjorie Cameron, Aleister Crowley, their relationship to the Babylon working, and how that informs a lot of our Operation Paperclip ties to the Nazi Party, who were brought into the United States had their records expunged despite the fact that they had horrible track records of human experimentation, including on children, and that this doesn't seem to be something they ever stopped doing. And a lot of people don't believe it until you draw the association to look, guys, ladies and gentlemen, that you must know that human energy is extractable and that there's people out there that want to get it no matter what. And children are the most defenseless. And Nazis of this variety do not seem to have any consciousness. They don't seem to care about anybody. I mean, they'll do this to people of all ethnic groups, including their own, simply to gain access to this Brill bioplasma energy that is, in fact, a fact that is just unknown and highly occulted. So please get familiar with that. I'll provide you some links, and I'm going to put links to this slide and some of my material on Twitter that you can get a better understanding of it. And I would say that if you want to partner with me, it's a good time to do that. But I would say that, if you're going to, make sure you're.
All right, you don't need to hear that. But getting back to that sentence, where is it? Able to store bioplasmic forces for later use. So who's doing it? Can we all agree, guys? I mean, do most people here agree that it's being done somewhere, that somebody's taking bioplasmic forces, and that the only place you can get human bioplasmic forces is from humans? And the last I checked, I've heard of plasma clinics, and I've even heard of blood clinics, but I have not heard of bioplasmic force clinics. So it begs the question, if one wanted to harvest human bioplasmic forces, what would that look like? What would a psychotronic generator look like? What materials would it involve in order to pull that etheric energy from the person to the psychotronic generator? Plumbing, water. You must have water. You must have electricity, and you must have magnetism. Because what you're trying to do is create an inverse of the human energy field. You map the human energy field of the person individually and then reverse the fields. And that creates an inverse of their energy field, and it begins to sap them of their life energy, so they begin to age exponentially. So it begs the question, where does that go? It's, guys, it's almost like what it is like in Princess Bride, that machine that makes the person scream with pain, where they take him into the tree stump and they hold him hostage there towards the end of the movie. Except his pain and agony equals life extension, more years on the life of the person who receives said human bioplasmic force. And this has been my challenge, ladies and gentlemen. What I've been trying to explain to you here is I have a very strong case to prove. And again, but I need help.
To look in.
I need funding, and I need more meaningful support. And I really kind of need somebody that's really to be, well, it'd be nice if some of my old friends and partners, especially those who have military and veteran experience, would start getting ready to join me in the near future with this, because I need you. America needs you, because this is a problem right now. This exact thing where it says psychotronic generators, devices which are reported to be able to store human bioplasmic forces for later use. This was slipped in our infrastructure. And this is our hidden enemy. And it's whether or not it happens to you is just a matter of, well, actually, to be honest, guys, I think nearly everybody has a little bit of it happening to them almost everywhere. And that you've just become used to it because it's in the energy grid. It's in the 60 hertz field that surrounds you in every power grid. And I'm not saying that for you to like jump and chase after your shadow or anything else like that. This is just more for the people that felt like they're having ailments that are seem to be accelerating, and they feel like a little bit of a snap or a pulse, where they get these weird pulsing and snapping and electrical sensations. That's probably that somebody's rigged up something that's on the level of a psychotronic generator into your plumbing system, and they're able to actually pull bioplasmic forces from you using the plumbing lines by creating an inverse of your energy field. Yeah, Cosmic Care Bear said it's like that book by John Saul, The Darkness. I'm not sure if it's the same one that I'm thinking of, but there's a graphic novel called The Darkness where there's a character named Jackie Estacado that has like a black mask that follows him around everywhere and attacks people to his whims. So it's like a dark matter energy force that's like a ghost or a djinn, and it stays dormant most of the time, but it becomes visible when he gets into extremes of anger or rage. They made it into two video games too, Darkness One and then a Darkness Two. So I don't know if that's the one you're talking about. It's such a generic name, it's hard to know which one you mean, but it's a similar type of concept, guys. And I think that this is why they call orgone pseudoscience. But if you read this document, I mean, that's what they're telling you there, that they've developed ways of extracting orgone, bioplasmic forces. Human bioplasmic forces, I would argue, is orgone. It's just a factor of what type are you taking from the person and how are you programming that orgone with what field of energy. And so I think they can actually get POR spectrum radiation from people, DOR spectrum radiation from people, and different factors. And it depends on what type of behavioral pattern they push you into. If you're ecstatic, you're orgasmic, if you're happy, if you're laughing, then yeah, you're going to generate a POR spectrum that's exponentially higher. Like there's more of that energy available when you push that out. It's healing energy. It's life affirming energy. It's what actually keeps you going. It recirculates. It's a little bit like wearing an orgone blanket. That's what the effect of laughter has. You generate more bions that actually recirculate into your own body and self heal and keep you living. And you produce less of those as you get more cynical. So there's a psychotronic effect. Like the people that act young, not necessarily act young, but feel young, like that are 100 years old, but you can't slow them down and they're still just trucking along and eating whatever the hell they want. And like George Burns chomped cigars and ate steak right up until his 100 and whatever birthday. Yeah, remember George Burns and Gracie Allen? George Burns. Oh God. Actually, I sound more like Peter Falk there. Talk about Princess Bride. I was just watching a movie with Peter Falk. Peter Falk is in that Vibes movie about the psychics that I was just watching the other day. So it's kind of funny that I must have Peter Falk in the brain. You see, Mrs. Columbo, she doesn't like really talking about this. I can even do the eye thing when I do my Peter Falk. Mrs. Columbo doesn't like talking about that. All right. No more Peter Falk. Oh, wow. So Cosmic Care Bear says in the book they're satanically sacrificing kids and extracting out of their spinal cord fluid to use as a fountain of youth. Well, yeah. It's trippy actually that you said that, guys, because I actually recorded on my phone last night. I was watching that Gina Carano film, In the Blood. If you guys have never watched this, you should check it out. Like, honestly, In the Blood with Gina Carano is like a really good action movie in and of itself. It's a good quality action movie. And I mean, it's B level. It's not like it's super big budget, but it's good quality. And it's actually the thing that I found so impressive about it is that it doesn't just function as a good action film. The drama in it is actually really, really genuinely suspenseful in ways that almost never do like modern directors achieve anymore. They can make films that are kind of cool and impressive and that you watch, but they don't really keep you at the edge of your seat and make you feel like the people that are in the movie, like you're experiencing it with them. And In the Blood with Gina Carano, you feel like you're experiencing the movie with her. So the filming technique and her performance, I think, both contributed to it heavily. I think it's John Stockwell's the director and Gina Carano is the star. And the thing I think that like nobody talks about In the Blood, they talk about other things like her Star Wars thing, but she has to like basically her and her husband, they go to this like tropical island, and the gangsters really run it, right? They run all the gambling and prostitution on the island. And so they wind up getting in some fight with one of the main gangsters who runs all the gambling and prostitutes on the island and pisses him off the first night. And so that kind of gets them on like a little bit of a shit list. And then they meet this guy, Manny, who invites them to go on this like zip climb, or zip rope thing. And then one of the guys winds up, or Gina Carano's husband winds up having like an accident while on the zip line. And so they have to pick him up in a hospital and take him away, right? But they say to her, "You can't ride in the ambulance; it's too narrow. There's only enough room for us and the patient." She's like, "Well, you can't have my husband. No, no, I got to go." And she's like, "No, no, you can follow us. Follow us. Here's the card. Here's where we're going." So they give her a business card and they just go off. But like she can't hardly keep up with them. They're like, it's almost like they're trying to lose her. And this is like incredibly suspenseful because they wind up just like they don't take him to the hospital that they say they're going to. So she spends like this very intense, like 10 minutes or so of the movie, like trying to go from hospital to hospital, getting increasingly frustrated because there's the language barrier. They don't know what she's talking about. She doesn't know what they're talking about. She's and her I have to say, this is like probably some of the best acting I've seen, honestly, in like a modern film in a long time. And she really like lives it. Like whatever she was like tapping into to play that scene, that was some real shit. That's all I can say. It impressed the hell out of me, and I don't hardly get impressed by people's acting anymore. But that was long before there was the Gina Carano worship. I was watching In the Blood. I was actually making recommendations that she should make other films with other. I had this weird idea. I won't talk about it right now. Anyways, so this is the thing, guys. That's the point of it. So let's get back to. Let me do a different tab here. Okay, back to the Twitter thread. This is where I do a little bit more information, like on my deep dive. I said I create slides you can zoom in on to read about complex topics quickly. The resolution is HD quality, and you're free to share them as you wish. Lots of information in a compressed space to explain Operation Paperclip, occult societies, and how to catch human trafficking networks. Now, guys, it's one thing to catch them; it's a whole other thing to do something about it because you have to have an agency in America that actually prosecutes or actually chases after them in earnest. And that's what a lot of my material has been trying to determine: is in fact the FBI doing anything in America to actually fight this problem? And as far as I can tell, almost everything that they do, that they put out there for public consumption, is fake. It's very seldom that they ever actually bust anybody or do anything. It's only when they have to. And then I would argue that even if they have a case like that where they bust somebody, chances are that no matter what kind of like public spectacle they make of it, a lot of the people that were victims of it are just going to wind right back up with another trafficking network, even if they actually published something that made it look like it was a win. It probably wasn't, because the problem just perpetuates to such an absurd degree. And in the age of information tracking, like I know it to be, I know it's nearly impossible to commit a crime now. So that's when I became like way more interested in, so how are they doing it? You understand that, folks? Like I was a person that designed cell towers for 20 years, and like, well, not just design, I did that for 7, but I was in the industry for 20 years. And I did optimization at a database level on how towers interact with one another. So I know how much you can tune in to like exactly where a phone is, okay? I know. I used to do it as a career. Guys, we have to use these type of snooping tools to be engineers. We do it to our own phones, just so you know. I mean, I'm not saying that to be salacious and give you a drop. No, it's because when I was a system performance engineer, the tools that I had to use that were made from the companies, they did heavy deep dive tracking of your device right down to a pinpoint location, and then it would do maps of the relationships between the towers. Exactly how many feet are you from this sector of this tower? How many feet are you from this sector of this tower? And it would give you a calculation, put the pinpoint on the map, and actually you could click on the line. It would tell you how far away it was from every tower. It would actually show you the relationships and the handoffs between the towers. These are kind of tools we had just to optimize and make it to where you didn't drop calls from tower to tower. Okay. But what I'm saying is that those things I know are available for law enforcement functions, for CALIA functions when you're trying to research missing persons and cases. And I know how many things would be solved with that data. So no one's solving anything. As far as I can tell, it's all being covered up. The routes through which you have to cull that data are hacked by the mafia, and they know it. I mean, the people that are kind of running it at this point are conscious and aware that this shit is all backdoored and hacked, and they just choose not to do anything about it because somebody at the high level is making money from it too. So when, say for example, you're staying at some fleabag, shitbag hotel, in Las Vegas, and you start hearing or seeing signs that somebody's like being trafficked, like that's actually like not that's being held captive in a hotel room, and you see like dudes going in there and lining up in and out all night, and you hear somebody screaming and they're going through something bad. Not to channel bad memories here or anything, or channel bad thoughts, guys, but those things happen. So to keep people safe, the FBI tells you call 888-373-7888. And what I'm telling you folks is that you may as well just call up the mafia. You may as well call them and say, "Hello, mafia. Here is the exact pinpoint of where I, the whistleblower on your network, is. And well, here's a person that you may not have managed inside your criminal cartel that I guess you need inside your inventory list. So I'm calling 888-373-7888 Polaris to basically report some fresh inventory for you and to get myself put on a blacklist or targeted for assassination. Thank you." That's our system in America. That's how you get an anonymous tip submitted. It's a joke. It's a big fucking joke. And they call the company that runs it Polaris. And Polaris received money from Harvey fucking Weinstein. It is a joke. The FBI knows it. So whose side are they on, ladies and gentlemen? Do you want to see proof of this? Because I can show you Polaris. I can show you their records. They used to brag that they got money from Harvey Weinstein until, well, that whole thing about him being a rapist came out. Not that people didn't know already. See, that's the absurd thing, guys. Did the FBI not know? They snoop on everything. That should be the thing that more folks start to figure out after a while. We know they snoop on everything. They like to just, why would they? What? Don't you think that the desire to peep on celebrities with all their spy tools would just be like too irresistible? So what keeps that from happening unless you merge these two things as one common ecosystem? Make sure that they have things where they're always doing basically the same thing. Hence, now you know why so many things are faked and why the FBI never seems to do anything. Because when a real crime happens, they'll go arrest them, make them a part of the mafia. Say, you either become one of us or you're going to spend your ass rotting in jail. So they're going to go like, hey, can't beat them, join them. You become now the new regional president of the area they arrested you in. And they'll put you out there as an undercover, or they'll put you out there as a paid informant. But you're really just a protected mafia member now. Because got news for you guys. I went to the FBI with information, and do I look protected by them? So does that ecosystem really exist the way that we've been told? I might even say, does the system work? When a guy like me has high-level information, does the FBI protect him? Answer, no. When you call 888-373-7888 to report a human trafficking victim, will they get help? Answer, no. And my problem is that I think the FBI knows this and they willfully disregard it because they're making money the same way. They're protecting the people that'll come after you for calling 888-373-7888. They're the ones in witness protection running that shit. The ones at a high level are paid informants, or they're in a secret protection program under an alias ID, still running the cartels and gangs, just keeping themselves distanced from it while receiving protection from the FBI's witness protection program. Then they make the claim to protect and, to keep everything on the down low and to make it all seem like it's all still going on. Then they create a new narrative that they fake arrest, and they do this over and over again. Well, we got to keep our witness protected here, so we'll just swap out this case with this fake one here and fake arrest these people in front of the cameras and everything, and that way they think we got somebody that they didn't. It's a way to psych them out. No, it's a way to trick everybody, and then now you recruited the criminal, and then we all got fed a fake story to consume in the media. Rinse, repeat. Then they just keep adding more people to their cartel, adding more to the mafia, who's all getting witness protection from the FBI. And who's out there not being protected? Well, take a look. What do we all have in common? Don't get me wrong, guys. You do the right thing, you'll get protection. It just won't come from the FBI. I know that. So I don't mean to make this sound hopeless. Okay. I'm not here to be like, blah, 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 blah. No, no, no. Like, I'm alive because I do the right thing. I stay rigidly by these positions of maintaining a desire to reach the truth no matter what, even if it's something that's painful to me personally and inconvenient to me personally. And thus far, you guys, nearly all the truths that I've learned have caused me a lot of personal trauma and harm and having to get past certain things. So that's why sometimes I look out at everybody else like going, shit, I basically had to lose a huge chunk of my family to figure this out. What have you all given up? Do you think it's challenging to wake up? Try having to get past that first. The very notion that you've got family members involved and that there's people on the outside that may not know the difference between you and them. That's pretty horrifying. I don't know why people think I look so much like my brother. I really don't. I'll show you guys, man. Maybe you can tell me. I found like a new like LinkedIn thing. I mean, come on, guys. Seriously? I mean, you could tell we're related, but it's not like we look alike. But the weird thing I find about that photo of him, he never had the ability to even grow close to that much facial hair, and it's in this really funky, weird pattern. I don't even understand what he's doing with that facial hair. I think it's because it grows in. Maybe it's because it grows in too sparse here, and it looks weird when he tries to like make it full. But it's like he shaved like a whole bald line in here. I don't know, but it's just bizarre because like it was something that when we got along, I would tease him about because I like, how come I'm your little brother and I can grow I can grow a full beard and my older brother can't. But yeah, that's the one that's been in the nuclear industry and has all the connections to SAIC, Science Applications International Corporation, was there for 6 years and has heavy ties to the nuclear industry. Not me. And there's a big difference in the way the inflections of our voice are. And he's got tattoos and I don't. I have not a single tattoo anywhere on my body. Not a single one anywhere. Never have. And the last time I checked, he's got two. One's a nuclear radiation symbol, a nuclear hazard symbol, and the other one's the jackass skull and bones logo from the series, like those guys that like beat each other up and do all the, the stunts and everything. It's that logo with the skull and crossbones. Don't know if he has piercings. My guess is he probably doesn't go that far. I have none myself. I don't do anything like that, guys. I don't do anything to harm, for the sake of being whatever. I don't have a problem with people that do piercings or tattoos in the classic sense, but it's not my thing. And it's not. And again, I don't find it always to be quote ugly, but it's not something that I find personally attractive or desirable. Like I don't look for it in women. I don't want them to have the tattoos. Again, I'm not going to go gross if they do, but more often than not, I just something that I don't have them, and I have feelings as to why I think it's a bad idea to have them, which influences my decisions to kind of try not to interact heavily within that environment of tattooing, because I do think that it changes your frequency. You're kind of doing something to interrupt what's going on within your light body. You're adding something that's an artificial imprint. There's something that also has something to do with ritualistic and sigil magic that I think is sometimes integrated into it depending on the artist that you choose that you may not be aware of. And quite a few of them have those beliefs. And so my concern is a lot of people haphazardly get tattoos without even thinking about what they're doing. That's all. And it's a very, very serious decision. And it's something that you should really like take some caution and concern about, like, what is it you're doing? Who are you selecting to do it? What kind of ink are they using? Are you aware of what kind of toxicity levels that it could potentially cause you in the future? Have you done any research on those types of things to know whether or not it's okay to do? Has the person that is doing the work, do you feel okay with them? Or did you just walk into some bar one, or, after going to some bars, walk into one of these places drunk and get it done? Because then you might wind up with a permanent sigil on your skin that you don't even know is a sigil that has occult power. They do things like that. Oh, here's another drunk dipshit. I'm gonna add like a little bit at least like my sigil onto their tattoo, and you'll think that you just got like a signature from somebody when they actually put something that they know is sigil magic. It's a hex. They imprinted you. So personally, I've never met anybody that I trusted that I would or had a desire to take that risk with my body, let alone find somebody that I wanted to actually touch it in that way to create that kind of permanent imprint. So I don't have the desire to have it done, number one. And then beyond that, I couldn't think of anybody that I would want to do it. and my dad even got a tattoo. That's the weirdest thing, man. Like he used to like have a problem with my brothers. And then at some point he decided to get one almost as big as my brother's on his calf, of a huge Cougars, Washington State University Cougars tattoo. I don't know. So sorry, guys. I didn't mean to deviate from off topic there, but so I said, if you find this interesting, I'd recommend you learn more about Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard's relationship with Sarah Northrup. It's quite telling how whitewashed history on occultists connected to NASA, Crowley, and Operation Paperclip Nazi scientists is. In case you think I'm spreading exaggerations about rocket science hero Jack Parsons, keep in mind he started a sexual relationship with Northrup when she was 13 years old, and has craters and statues, craters on the moon and statues here in America dedicated to him. Here is more info on his connection to Hubbard and Crowley. And if you think the whole Parsons and Northrup thing was bad, remember that Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard was wickedly abusive to her also. Scientology's Squirrel Patrol professional stalkers hunt people down who release this type of info. Why are they defending him? Most people know about Aleister Crowley, the 666, the Beast, aka Titan, his self-applied nicknames. Crowley thought Hubbard, this is what I find interesting, guys. This is one of the reasons why I try to say, like, maybe people don't always know exactly who Crowley is, because we may have been sold, like, there might be a happy balance between how truly evil he was and how presented evil he was. He may have been doing things that were more provoking people into thinking of things at a deeper level. So I'm not always sure, guys, but I'm never going to be a Crowleyite. Okay. I'm just not prepared to judge them all, just to reiterate that. But the thing I found telling, though, is no matter what your opinion of Crowley is, gray, black, white, whatever, you would definitely find it compelling to know that when L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron were doing their Moonchild sex magic rituals, Aleister Crowley opposed it. He was saying, you guys are dabbling into something that I think is very dangerous, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. And he actually warned Jack Parsons against hanging out with L. Ron Hubbard. And it was when L. Ron Hubbard began that more intense relationship with Jack Parsons that Jack Parsons' life began to decline and spiral downward exponentially. And by the end of it, he lost his family fortune. He lost all of his earnings, and a lot of it was stolen by L. Ron Hubbard, who ran off with Jack Parsons' wife, who, again, guys, hard to feel bad for him in this case, because Jack Parsons, again, was the guy that was having sex with his wife's underage sister and doing sex magic rituals at the young age of 13. I mean, this wasn't like anything, gray area or kind of on the fence or something like that. That's, to me, sex magic at 13, man. You can't make arguments for that just being the times or something like that, or saying, guys, it was the 60s. No, that's pretty intense shit. And 13-year-olds of any level, I don't think even in the 60s are ready to be doing sex magic rituals. And Jack Parsons had to fucking know that. L. Ron Hubbard, as adult men, they had to know that. That's all. I just don't think that's, I mean, to me, that says a lot about their integrity level. So again, guys, fine. If you want to say, this is what's trippy about this, though. You see where I'm in a kind of weird conundrum? Like, Aleister Crowley in this whole dynamic was the only sensible person in it. So again, I'm not saying that that makes him a good guy. I'm saying within this whole dynamic, it shows you that if you think Aleister Crowley's crazy, imagine what L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron were doing with the Moonchild ritual. Because I was told it involved like human DNA, nuclear materials. They were trying to do something. I mean, I know at least part of it was Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard watching each other masturbate and doing like on tablets, on like doing magical incantations. And they had some of the other members involved with it too. So these guys are doing all kinds of freaky shit. And now it's a major religion that, you know, most people are afraid to ever mention in America. L. Ron Hubbard is the main head guy. He's dead now. But see, the people that believe in that, they are brutal. If you say something about the Church of Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard, they make your life miserable. They come after you aggressively. And you can talk, there's multiple documentaries about this. You don't even have to watch that Leah Remini show about leaving Scientology to know like how bad it is. There's been documentaries made long before that that actually document where the people take cameras around and they show like what they go through after leaving the church, and they're stalked. I mean, they're aggressively stalked. Like these people will camp outside their houses and record them coming in and out all day long and yell at them and harass them. Everything that just barely, whatever they can get away with legally, they do. And they know every loophole to do all their shady shit right in front of everybody. So doesn't mean everybody who's involved with it are doing that, but they should at least have some degree of awareness about the ones that are and hold them accountable and be like, guys, you know, this isn't the way. This should always be voluntary. If you want to be inside something or don't want to be, it should always be something where people can freely go or you know, whatever. And if it's not spirituality, at least. And I would argue I don't think it's even legal at that point. If the person doesn't really have the option to leave, that's something else. That's slavery. And since people that report that when they were underage and they were members of Sea Org, they were literally put into slave labor type conditions, not hard to believe. Those unfamiliar, Sea Org is like that's like the elite, the SS, you know, of the Scientologists. It's like the ones that reach the highest levels and know that Xenu is their god and rains down demons and bad thoughts and shit. Okay, I said one thing NASA and their Nazi SS. Hang on. One thing NASA and their Nazi SS collaborators all agree on: America should just get over it and celebrate a captured Nazi POW instead of punishing them. Is it just me, or does all this seem a bit obscene and disturbing considering they exterminated children and experimented on them? And then what I do here, guys, is I kind of show you some slides where it basically it shows you how in America we seem to have forgotten that we were in this like conflict with the Nazis and that, you know, the Nazis lost, because you would never know it if you were in America. It's like what they did was they just rebranded and said, yeah, we're American now. We're no longer Nazi. But then they made us them. And now they're getting us, tricking our entire society to serve their agenda. And ladies and gentlemen, I consider it part of my mission here. I really do. To like make more people aware of how serious of an issue this is. Like we really have to get our shit together as a country because others will do it for us. And we really don't, we're strong, but there's too much rigging and faking going on. And those on the inside know exactly what I'm talking about. Fake head counts. So getting into a real conflict the way that you want to or try to isn't really an option, which is why we're in a proxy war with Russia right now instead of a real one. You see, America doesn't have the resources to go to war with Russia. So they just stack up a bunch of shit on the border and have Ukraine do it. But is it America doing that? Or is this just simply them finishing, or what they're trying to do is finish the battle that began in that same region back in World War II? They want to take it back using NATO. NATO may as well equal Nazi. It's just a way to extend the Nazism, guys. and get everybody to partner with them. So that's why there's such an opposition to NATO. And Russians have figured out the Nazi thing, guys. I mean, have we figured it out if we're doing this? We've got the Wernher von Braun Center for Science and Innovation. Now, guys, I covered this yesterday and I've done it many times before. Wernher von Braun was a Nazi. He is a Nazi SS, but yet there is a nonprofit research and development organization based in Huntsville, Alabama, and is named for pioneering aerospace engineer Wernher von Braun. But they always leave out that he was a Nazi. Okay, fine, whatever. Whoa, who's the main member? Dianetics. Well, how about that, guys? You know, it's interesting to me, though, that this is where everything is kind of bizarre to me, because now SAIC and Leidos, their spinoff space company is Dianetics. They purchased it from somebody else. So now that's part of the whole Nazi king fold of companies and all the shit that they run. So, Dianetics. Guys, do you know what else is called that? Well, Dianetics, spelled with an I instead of a Y. That's the only difference between the one that is the SEIC Leidos company. Guys, I mean, are these people? Oh, look at that. Interesting. Dianetics? Dianetics. Oh, okay. Not Dianetics. Anyways. But yeah, if you read here, guys, very briefly, Dianetics is a set of pseudoscientific ideas and practices regarding the metaphysical relationship between the mind and body, created by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard, the guy I've been telling you all about here that's founded Scientology. Also wrote, like, their whole doctrine is the book Dianetics. Yeah, so they believe that engrams, that you're poisoned by engrams, and so again, they're trippy, guys. They'll basically get all the people in this religion to, like, try to chase away all the engrams, and they, like, once you go through one level of getting rid of a whole bunch of your engrams and you've been called clear, man, now you got a whole bunch of new engrams. Like, they're like, as soon as they've come up with a new technique to do all their measuring, it's like, oh no, you know something? Yeah, with the old technique, we thought you had cleared all your engrams, but as it turns out, with this new technique, using the new auditing machine and the new MK3 whatever machine, yeah, we have to do a new audit on you, and of course that's going to cost a few $1,000s. But you can work it off on the ship or something like that by doing some manual labor for us at night. But you also have to cough up some fees there and buy some books and everything and do some new teachings and new seminars. So it becomes very much like Amway. And the people get in these, like, states of, like, oh my god, I'm going to lose my rank if I don't go back into the training. I have to clear my engrams. I mean, and this is really the universe a lot of these people live in, being in this constant state of needing to clear engrams, trauma signatures, effectively. So look, guys, like, there's a certain degree, like, if you really study what Dianetics is talking about, of course, like, there's so many intelligent and intellectual people that have gotten into Scientology that it's not without merit. So can I just be real with you here? The Xenu thing I don't accept at all. Okay. But L. Ron Hubbard was stealing and borrowing liberally from other mystic forms of understanding human energy and the way trauma or POR and DOR spectrum radiation work on the human mind and how you can program it as matter. And so all he did was create a belief system that centers around him as its sort of central guy, to where you have to always come back to old Ronnie. And that's how you oh shit, it just occurred to me, I did Ron the Tiburon, and I just forgot that L. Ron Hubbard. I didn't even mean to have that association. It just was funny to me because when I was doing those shark things, that the Tiburon is a shark in Spanish, so naming the shark Ron made the sense to me. Ron the Tiburon. Sorry to bounce around topics there, guys. That was only for people who've been watching my channel for several months. You know about Ron the Tiburon and Don Codleone. All right. So getting back to the other one. Okay, so that's the Wikipedia entry on the von Braun Institute. So let me zoom out here really quick and go to the next one. Yeah, and then I put, here's the other organizations that are supporting the von Braun Institute. So again, these are the ones, this is like the corporate indoctrination aspect of what we're all experiencing here, where they get us all to sort of just say like, yeah, this is all normal. But look who's supporting the von Braun Association. Three companies that are the same thing. SAIC is Leidos. Leidos is Dynetics. These are all the same company, but they are traded under different tickers. But SAIC spun off to Leidos, and then Leidos just went and bought Dynetics. So it's like they're all the same, guys. It's it's the pyramid. It's the all-seeing eye right in front of you. It's Oz right there. Oz. Like that Oz technology. AZ technology, Oz tech. Maybe somebody should look deeper into that one. Those are a couple of stills from the film The Boys from Brazil. And ladies and gentlemen, if you really, 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 really want an education into this sort of hidden history of Nazis, you have to watch at least once. And I would argue that it takes a few different viewings for the average person to really absorb. I know for me it did. It's very dense with information. And yes, it's technically fiction, you guys, but I mean, yes and no. Basically, it involves a real Nazi scientist, which is Joseph Mengele, and it actually discusses like his experiments with children, and there's actually things that are implied in the film that he kidnaps children and actually changes their eyes from like he's in like Argentina or something like that, I think, in the movie, or somewhere in South America. I can't remember where it opens up, but anyways, they show actually like a kid that he steals from the village, that in one scene that you did, the camera like is hiding his face for a while, and then as the scene ends and pans around, you see that he's taken this boy that's like one of the Indian boys from the village and changed his brown eyes to like just this really rich color of blue. And that was one of the things that Mengele was doing. And it wasn't always because of like racial superiority. He was actually interested in the process of what makes the color of the eyes. He wanted to understand actually. A lot of people don't know, and I was told this a long time ago, and I lack the documentation on it now, but I've seen it in more than one place, that Joseph Mengele had a specific interest in twins, and that he was into his golden goose of wanting to find the right pairing. He was always looking for um, women, twin girls that had black hair and blue eyes. That particular the richer the color, like the darker the blue and the blacker the hair combination combined, is what I think he was considered to be his like golden cocktail of what he was actually seeking. He wanted to experiment on twins that had this exact dynamic. And that's just interesting to me. Like that was really it. And so if you think about it, in all actuality, who was his real target most of the time? It's almost like everybody else. It's like he must have seen something about that hair and eye combination and what it contributes to the DNA. I don't know. He must know something. So again, like that's the thing that the value in like understanding Nazism better, and why Operation Paperclip was even like there was a case that was made, because some people are like, why would we do that? Well, because if we didn't take the Nazis, and I think we just did it the wrong way, but if we hadn't, an adversary can recruit them, and then we would have to start this whole thing over again. So some would argue, well, why don't you just have a trial and convict them and put them behind bars, blah, blah, blah. Why turn them into your new heroes? That's where we all should be talking more about what the fuck happened in this country. And it needs to be. But again, crickets chirp. It needs to be an honest discussion, because a lot of what's going on right now that we don't understand is being engineered by Nazis. And I would argue that the Department of Energy is really their hidden ecosystem because it's all tied into this. It's all tied into this whole system involving energy, um, alternative energies, human energies, occulted concepts of it. I put it's bizarre to me that few care about the true history of Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. They have strong connections to everything going on right now. It's almost like this content is being double shadow banned. Why would somebody protect a historical figure who slept with an abused 13-year-old girl? So here's an article that I from oh shoot. I have it actually in this thread, so I can actually give you guys a quote from it. But it says Sarah Northrup's life was difficult from the start. When she met Hubbard, she was living at the home of physicist and occultist Jack Parsons. Both she and Hubbard were members of Aleister Crowley's sex magic cult. Northrup's life was already filled with sexual abuse. She'd been molested by her father from a young age, a trauma that likely explains why she was already sleeping with Jack Parsons by age 13. However, he wasn't just twice her age, he was her sister's husband. When Hubbard showed up, he must have seemed like a savior. Granted, he was every bit as strange as Parsons was. In fact, the two worked together to summon a Babylonian goddess, believing they could bring her to life by chanting, dabbing runes with animal blood, and masturbating on magical tablets. But Hubbard was a war hero, injured in battle, or so he claimed. He won Northrop over by spinning stories about his heroism that most of the cult members wrote off as tall tales. But the young Northrop brought into them completely. I believed everything he said, Northrop said later. It just never occurred to me that he was a complete liar. So, yeah, that's the end of the Twitter thread. Let's see what else I got here. So, what I think is kind of going on, folks, right now is so they made the announcement simultaneously today that old Sam Brinton got let go from the Department of Energy, and then they also put out this thing, and it's kind of strange to me how many of these sort of like concepts are coming out. Like I think they've known about a lot of these things for a long time, but we're suddenly getting all these like data dumps right leading into the holidays, right when everybody's distracted and everybody's busy and everybody's got things going on, you know. And it kind of begs the question as far as, you know, what's the real reason for that? To be clear, guys, nuclear fusion, sorry, not fission, but fusion. Fission, nuclear fission is when they're trying to make a bomb or a weapon or an explosion. And nuclear fusion is a concept they've been working on for a while that basically will be a zero carbon nuclear form of energy. So free energy, zero carbon energy. So again, I don't know if that translates to free. I mean, for these folks, it never does, right? And I think that's the problem. It's like right now, guys, people are so smart now that we've all gotten. We know that there's a car out there that exists that was powered entirely by water that goes over 100 miles an hour. So whatever Tesla is giving us right now is bullshit. Okay, it is. There's something better, and we're just not getting it until somebody else learns how to reinvent it, and I'm sure they have, and they've been killed every time. My guess is that's what's gone on. If they can't buy you out of the invention, they just fucking kill you. So who has access to the information to know when an invention is going to be reinvented or when somebody's about to make an innovation? Who would be the group that would know the most about when that's happening? Who has access to every internet protocol address? Who has access to every phone line? Who has access to every data route? All roads lead back to SAIC, led by Nazi King. But there's another element to this, guys, involving Battelle. Hang on real quick. I got to get this. Okay, I'll use one of these old ones. I'm going to show you something about the current conflicts. You can guys kind of see, like, Battelle's running the Department of Energy labs, guys. So if you're wondering, I always say that most of this like disinformation really isn't happening from the agencies that we typically assign them to. They're coming from Department of Energy managed labs where Battelle largely has control over everything. Now, it's interesting to me that very few people know about what I'm about to show you, and that some of the only people that discussed it, of course, would be Russian media, and it was suppressed here in the United States. Like, well, you can't handle the truth. Do I still got an audience here, guys? You guys still in the chat? Somebody want to give me a thumbs up so I know I'm not just talking to myself? Because my connection's having some hiccups here.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to show you something really quick here that I put together on Twitter, and I know not many people see my Twitter anymore, so I wanted you to see this in a YouTube
Okay, cool.
article.
Thank you, Fred.
So Sputnik posted this.
Okay, this is something I did before my channel kind of went silent for a while, and it's about some of the information that's been released connecting Battelle, who manages all the Department of Energy labs. So it's kind of important that you kind of get this history, and then I'm going to read some shit for you about some like occult history of like Brookhaven and things like that to help tie together the Nazi history and some alternative things about what went on. So I'll be back.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to show you something really quick here that I put together on Twitter, and I know not many people see my Twitter anymore, so I wanted you to see this in a YouTube article. So Sputnik posted this morning a whole slide on how it's from the Russian Ministry of Defense showing how military biological projects in Ukraine are run. And this initial one, it's not like it's that detailed, but you can kind of see here how it shows the German and Polish military and biological activities. This part I don't really understand a lot as far as the whole German and Polish part goes, but what did spike my curiosity was this whole thing with Battelle Memorial Institute, because anybody who follows my material knows that nearly all roads lead back to the Department of Energy and Battelle, in addition to SAIC and Leidos, but they're side topics. But what I'm telling you here is that Battelle is obviously heavily involved in everything that's going on overseas right now. It says that their part within those biological labs was temporal analysis of rabies cases amongst domestic and wild animals in Ukraine. All right, so that's that part, guys. But what makes this a little bit troubling is I put, look in the upper right corner, that's the same Battelle that manages the Department of Energy. That's the same Battelle that runs the nuclear surveillance, cybersecurity, NSA function at Pacific Northwest National Lab. The same DOE where many of our internal problems originate, in my humble opinion. So if you scroll down, hang on here. All right, so I put PNNL is fond of ciphers and cryptograms. They also have authorization to create propaganda in the US as long as it's designed to fool foreign audiences for national security. PNNL equals Department of Energy equals Battelle. So what I'm telling you guys is that basically the way that the contractor relationships exist is your Department of Energy as a government agency. I mean, it's kind of the Department of Energy, but it's really just Battelle anymore and just a few other companies that manage it and run it. So sure, it's the government, but it's not. It's basically run by Battelle. Battelle has lots of partnerships with SAIC, Leidos, Jacobs, Centera, a bunch of other companies, and something called the Mission Support Alliance based out of Hanford, Washington, a former nuclear reservation, now cleanup project and lab. So what other propaganda did they invent on U.S. soil, and who did it fool? So if you want to know what I'm talking about when I tell you about this, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013 is a United States federal law which specifies the budget and expenditures of the U.S. Department of Defense. The full title is an act to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2013 for military activities of the Department of Defense, for military construction, and for defense activities of Department of Energy. Okay, guys, so remember what I'm telling you is that once you deliver all of those authorizations over the Department of Energy, you're effectively giving it to Battelle you're giving it to the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, PNNL, who does have a something called the National Security Directorate, which I have a slide for here. I know about this because I actually had a relative that worked there at one time. They don't work there anymore, but they were replaced by somebody whose name is Shelley Groves. I'm sorry, Shelley Groats. Shelley. So basically, a Cruz was replaced with a Groats. So, you know, Groats, Croots. I don't know. You can make whatever you want from that, but that's a whole side topic. Anyways, guys, but that's basically where a lot of these authorizations lead back to, is specifically the National Security Directorate. And you can kind of see here how that works. I put here in this slide, the Smith-Mundt Authorization Act of 2012 would allow U.S. propaganda intended to influence foreign audiences to be used on the domestic population. So again, folks, this is one of the reasons why it created a lot of concern.
Which would involve creating characters like Groats Croots and creating false LARPs and crisis acts and false flags and fake shootings that divide our population and get us into race riots over bullshit, over things that didn't actually happen. And wow, isn't it interesting that, you know, my brother seems to be part of this place that's capable of doing this. And I don't think, look, to me, this is like, when I saw this, I was like, are you shitting me? You're telling me that he left and was replaced by somebody with the name Groats. Grohs. Bullshit. No, this is just more of their fakery. And then I remembered that one of the guys that Kyle Rittenhouse shot, he shot two guys. One was that Rosenbaum guy that was the serial pedophile child rapist that died. And the other guy that didn't die but just got shot was named Gage Groats. And I've always thought that that was bullshit, you guys, because Gage Groats, if you look closely, go look it up, guys. Look up all the photos of him. You know what he has right here? He's got those big ass insert earrings. I forget what they call them, those tribal ones. And those unfamiliar, like the way they impress each other about how, you know, how big their earrings are, is the size is the gauge. So it's what gauge earring that they place in there. And he's got one of the biggest gauge earrings you can have. Isn't it interesting that Gage Groats, who was involved with what looks to be a false flag that got everybody into a bigger race riot in America for a couple years, seems to have these two names merged as his probably fake last name. And they just happen to be the names of, well, where my brother was situated at this place that could be doing all of this disinformation. So does it mean that he did? No, but he was right at the table where they could, with people in counterintelligence, NSA functions, Homeland Security functions. Pretty much all the fuckery was right there next to him while he was there. And all I can tell you is that the same way that I know a Picasso when I see it, the same way I know when I'm watching a Martin Scorsese movie when I see it, I know when I'm watching a Tim Burton movie, I know when I'm watching Martin Scorsese, I know when I'm watching Hal Hartley, I know when I'm watching a David Fincher movie. Like, there's some directors, Stanley Kubrick. In fact, I'm actually Brian De Palma. There's some directors where I've become so familiar with the way that they use like angles and lenses and techniques that I would know when somebody's trying to make a perfect copy of that director's style, or it's actually the director. I mean, I think there are directors that actually make movies under pseudonames and don't tell anybody, almost because they want to see if people know. Like the Alan Smythe thing. They'll put other films out where, like, I wonder if people know this was me. Yeah, I think there's a lot that are like that. The Muppet movie is one of them. I'm not going to get into that right now. Sorry to sound goofy, guys, but that's one that's got all kinds of things going on with it. But yeah, so that's one of those things right there, guys, that I don't mean to get too deep into that Hollywood thing. I know what I just said was like, sounds a little strange, but it's because there's an intersection with fakery, guys. So like, you need to start looking at these news things that they're trying to get us all upset about as these are scripted realities designed by people that make movies, and they're in cahoots with people. Like they found a way, guys, to merge the interests of these people that are into drugs and have the things of the kids and all the other things, right? So if you're a person that's addicted to drugs, or you also have child abuse and other more exotic forms of sexual deviance inside your repertoire of needs, then yeah, that makes them a recruitable class that is easily exploited, because they can also use them underground as staff, because they turn them into their club, and then it's a mutual secret that they all keep. And so confusing us above ground lets them do things below ground. We're always distracted. Nobody's pounding at the doors to those queue entrances, are they? But you should be. You should be. You should be demanding to know what's down there, because it's Battelle that's hiding it from us. It's not our government secrets that are being kept down there. It's things that are protecting Nazis that are down there. And look at this org chart, guys, because I want you to see this before I'm not going to play the rest of that article, because you've already, it's already pretty much done. But well, actually, no, I'll play the rest. Yeah, I should play the rest. But I want you to look at, no, I already did, actually. I already played it. So I rewound it. Sorry about that. So Pacific Northwest National Laboratory here. See this logo down at the bottom? So now that we're done showing you that, I'm going to show you another slide so you can see just how much they're actually controlling. This is actually, so the article you just saw was about Battelle and their connection of biolabs that are on the Ukrainian border. And so this is also for people in Russia to understand too. Like, please understand, guys, this effery that's going on here, it's this very small group of people that are like hoodwinking everybody, including Americans. And like, we don't want this. I don't think most of us want to be having our money sent there. We need that shit here. We're suffering here. We've got problems we want to address here. And I don't think most people want to see billions and billions of dollars go over to the Azov Nazi battalion just to continue World War II so the Nazis can win this time. Because that's what the fuck they're doing. Now, they're not winning, but the point is to fund them in such a way where Nazis here can use the resources, which are ours as non-Nazis, to fight their war using their battalion over in Ukraine against the Russians. And America, wake up, because these people are spinning everybody. And if you don't figure it out, because Russia knows. Guys, do I need to go back to the other one? Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, proudly managed by Battelle. Okay, that's Department of Energy's National Laboratory. So what is Department of Energy? It's Battelle. Okay, so let's go back really quick. No, you know what? I want to play this again as a reminder, because it's only like a few minutes, because I interrupted the flow of it. Battelle and Black and Veatch doing bioweapons labs near Russia's border. The Clinton Global Initiative and Soros. Whose war is it, you guys? Is this America's war? Is this, again, these same people that pretend that they're liberal and that they don't want war, yet they're the biggest war hawks? And ironically, this doesn't seem to be a hugely popular conservative position, except for in these Mockingbird journalist circles where they're going like, yes, that's right. We must go after Russia before they start being aggressive towards us. Fund Ukraine all the way. And guys, I don't like war. I don't want to see cities get leveled. I don't want to see people without power. I don't like seeing innocent people suffer anywhere. I'm not a fan of it. But Nazis will push and go like, what the fuck are you gonna do? What the fuck are you gonna do? What the fuck are you gonna do? Push. And then right at the moment that they piss off their adversary, guess what they do? They throw everyone else in front as human shields and they go someplace else. So congratulations, America, because you're starting to experience, if you're a civilian, you're now experiencing what our veterans have been experiencing for decades. Being used as human shields, being told you're defending something that's more holy for America, and then learning once you're over there, like, No, it's for something else. And that's not their fault. It's bad intelligence, bad analysis. From who? Well, if it's not Battelle giving shit analysis and doing shady things overseas, SCIC's got it covered on the other angle. And it always comes back to the same place, guys. They always have the same influence in the same place. Department of Energy. Then I'm going to show you something. I might go longer than a few hours tonight, guys. I might actually add a half hour so I can go over Preston Nichols' material. I'm going to play the rest of this real quick. Okay, so off my soapbox on what I think's going on, guys. Um, so I'm going to give you some quick. Oh, sorry, guys. It auto played the next clip for some weird reason. It almost never does that. All right, so now I want to show you something. I'm going to kind of like, I know this is skipping around slightly, but this is to kind of give you an alternative perspective on some of the things that go on with the Department of Energy historically and some of the Nazi roots and experiments that have gone on historically. Because, guys, so now that you know that DOE is sort of performing some deeper surveillance functions and have access to all of our records and all of our phones and everything else like that, the way they do for that agency I just showed you, and that's just a again run by Battelle for DOE, handling things that most of us think only the NSA handles, but they're doing it out there in the middle of rural Eastern Washington. And it's, I mean, who actually said they can? See, I can't really even find that. That's the thing I'm struggling with. I really can't find a specific thing that says it's okay for them to form their own NSA out there and basically run it that way. And then to actually have the extension of there being actors that actually place the operations into the population and do things, which would be consistent with crisis acting and consistent with LARPs and false flags, would it not? Anyways, why would there be Nazism behind that? A person that is kind of controversial in alt media circles and like deep alt media would be Preston Nichols. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but he did some books about the Montauk Project, Philadelphia Experiment, things like that, and connections that he has to it. So I'm going to show you his book. What I did was I just went into his book here and I did a quick search function. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see me. I did a quick search function for Brookhaven, and so I thought that I would actually share some of the things that are inside his book so that you can kind of see these pages in particular. I wanted just to read, and this is again from the Music of Time. It's from the introduction for Preston Nichols' book, and it has alternative histories to things that I think most people they wouldn't normally accept. And I'm not suggesting that you like buy all of his like alternative histories about who we knew or didn't know or what those people used to do, but there is a lot of useful information in here. And Preston Nichols' books always has good technical data. Like that's the one thing I can't ever shoot a hole in. When I start following his technical data clues, they always lead me to something way more meaningful that helps my research. So let me just read from some sections of this involving Brookhaven. And so again, if you're unfamiliar, Brookhaven is a Department of Energy lab on the East Coast in upstate New York that has a hadron collider, just like CERN. So it has the spinning rotational Alice system magnets, and it does something similar to CERN. Says, even if one does not accept the more sensational aspects of the Philadelphia experiment, there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that the sailors were exposed to non-ordinary electromagnetic fields as a result of the degaussing coils that were employed to demagnetize their hull. This is about the Philadelphia experiment in the USS Eldridge, those unfamiliar. In order to first prevent negative effects on human beings, a massive study was eventually begun after the war at Brookhaven Laboratories in order to understand how human beings and the human consciousness relate to different electromagnetic fields. By the way, guys, I know the name of that project. It's not listed in here, but that's Project Rainbow. And I have of some of the declassified documents on it that I've shared with you in the past. This research also had at its disposal human behavioral studies conducted by the Nazis. Many of them were quite gemsome, but they were empirical in nature and were as meticulous as only Germans can be. They provided considerable information about human reactions. It is no small irony that when Brookhaven Laboratory was erected in 1946, the location selected was Yaphank, home to the largest concentration of Nazis outside of Germany. Before the war, Yaphank, I don't know if that's how you say it, guys, Yaphank or Yaphank, sported an Adolf Hitler Boulevard with other streets named after Goebbels, Goring, and the like. Many people of German descent worked at the lab as well, and there have always been questions about their loyalties. Not only did Brookhaven entertain top international scientists, many of whom were German, but it became the premier atomic and scientific research center in the world. Shortly after, the National Security Act was passed and the CIA was brought into being. Covert connections between the Nazis and the U.S. were completely affirmed when Allen Dulles, the first director of the CIA, hired Reinhard Gehlen to set up the working procedures of the CIA. Served as the director of Nazi intelligence in Europe. Dulles also hired Ewan Cameron, the head of the American Psychiatric Association, to conduct mind control experiments under a program known as MK Ultra. No, let me get that out of the way there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me make sure. Okay, let me get this out. There we go. Sorry about that. As the human mind was studied, and sometimes quite brutally, all sorts of empirical observations were made. Just as the Nazis had their own occult bureau and researched the supernatural, so did the researchers at Brookhaven. Finally, after years of research, there were successes in integrating the human mind with computers. The experiments in mind control, although limited, were successful. Eventually, this clandestine research was considered to be potentially very dangerous and the funding was denied. Nonetheless, great strides have been made in terms of technology and secret forces carried forward, eventually moving the project to a decommissioned Air Force station at Montauk, New York. It was there that eyewitnesses say that the research reached its apex on August 12, 1983, when a full-scale hookup was made to the USS Eldridge in 1943 and time travel became a reality. So this is postulating that there was actually a link made in 1983 back to 1943 in a 40-year window between the USS Eldridge in a loop. They actually made a connection to it, and that was covered in the Montauk experiment. Excuse me, the Montauk Project Experiments in Time, and that's a book that I have actually discussed inside some of my other research about the Controlled Offensive Behavior Report by the Defense Intelligence Agency. There's a link between these things. Preston Nichols remembers entering the fold of the Montauk research when he became a paid employee of Brookhaven Labs in the late 1960s. But his first recollections occurred when he was having a family dinner that included his cousin and her husband. The husband mentioned that he had seen Preston at Montauk, yet Preston had no recollection of ever having been there. This resulted in a heated argument. Over the years, more people began to recognize Preston from Montauk. So, guys, the reason why I was reading that to you is because I have something that I'm not like Preston Nichols in this sense, guys, but there was people sometimes that were swearing up and down. This was like about 2016 when they saw me on the Basis Project. They swear that something happened to them within their timeline that was like some off-world thing, they claim. I'm not telling you that I believe it, but I had more than a couple people say it, that they recognized me being on a ship and that they had seen me before. And I provoked like a very strong reaction in some of these people when they saw the interviews with me, because they have these vivid experiences that are maybe astral in nature, or they went through something that they really feel like actually happened. And they thought that I might have been there. And that one of them actually told me that they were apologizing to me because they felt like they had let me down and that they didn't like succeed on some mission that they were trying to do. It was really trippy. I mean, again, I don't know what to think of those things. I don't dismiss them, but I know that I don't have a memory of it. So hang on real quick. Nope, that's not it. Hang on, guys. Sorry. This freaking player, it's not letting me get back into my search function. All right, let me start over here. Sorry about this. Well, God, why is this happening, guys? This always happens. Bullshit like this happens, and it never happens when I'm just reading it. It only is when I'm in the middle of a stream. Then it winds up taking out the continuity and the flow of what I'm doing. So, all right. Find Brookhaven. Okay, here we go. We're back in business. What a pain in the ass, man. Well, here's the deal, guys. I can't read this whole book, obviously, here tonight, but I want you to like take a good look at some of these chapters, though, so you can kind of understand. Because Preston Nichols, some of the things that he brings up, even though he's kind of an eccentric guy, there's no doubt that this guy knows like a whole bunch about the way music patterns interact with our consciousness and how we perceive reality, how it can actually bend the plasma field and create patterns. And so I do think there's something going on where some people might have some alternative memories of history, a sort of mandala effect of sorts with shuffled histories based on potential timeline rifts. Because yeah, there was experiments like the USS Eldridge, there was the Philadelphia experiments. People have done things in the past, in the future, and I'm sure in the present that'll involve high power electromagnetic fields, and how and training them on somebody will affect them. In fact, somebody that's connected to my own research that I think is a family member was in an episode of The Outer Limits that involved this exact topic, except it involved sending the exact same types of frequencies, just like in it's same concept as USS Eldridge, except what they're trying to do in this Outer Limits episode is send the person to Mars. But that's it. Like, instead of making them like shielded, the point is to actually transport them using an electromagnetic field from one place to another, and then to bring them back and have them completely materialize in one area and then rematerialize in another. Yeah, so Noises says that his info is not new, and I get that, But what I'm saying though is he does have some pretty interesting concepts about. If you watch some of his interviews, like just beyond these books, I've watched quite a few of his interviews where he was in his space time laboratory, and again, it's eccentric, but I'm telling you, he has some really fascinating observations about what do you want to call it? He has some pretty fascinating observations about like Tesla coil technology and things of that nature. So yeah. So I guess, I don't want to like, I was thinking about reading more about through the Brookhaven aspect of the book, but I think I should save that for a whole separate presentation. I just wanted to let you guys know that Music of Time by Preston Nichols covers some of these like Department of Energy occulted Nazi histories. And that gives you kind of a brief overview of some of the things that are going on with Brookhaven, so that there's at least one other story out there where you can kind of go, okay, fine. So if Brookhaven was run by Nazis going all the way back there and had these significant German populations, is it possible that this exists in pockets elsewhere? Because guys, go look at Hanford Nuclear Reservation, and you'll notice that they German up everything out there. They have a hammer program that they call Volpentest. Volpentest. It's all German. Like they spell things with K's, and it's like everything's like the compressor, like compressor, like the Mercedes, like when you get a spruced up Mercedes, it's called a compressor. Yeah, the AMG package or a compressor package. It's like that. It's all that type of Germanic, fancying up of their studies, their stories, their labs. You'll find it over and over again at Hanford Nuclear Reservation. So think about that thing involving Brookhaven being kind of an extension of Nazi experiments. And then you can translate that to Battelle, what their involvement is there on the border, why Russia's highlighting it to us and letting us know, like, guys, we're not even saying this is you doing it. We kind of know where this is coming from. So will y'all figure it out and we all can get along? So I just want to acknowledge the folks that some of us here have figured it out. Sorry to our friends overseas or wherever else like that. I apologize that America's a little bit slow on this, but me too. It was right underneath me. And I can't expect the rest of this country to figure it out that fast if I had it this close to me and it took me this many years to figure out myself, And I mean that in earnest, guys. I mean, this is pretty sophisticated how they had the wool pulled over our eyes for this long. So, but well, guys, I need to cap this off a little bit. Otherwise, it's going to be too long. It already probably is. And I do appreciate everybody here joining and being a part of the discussion here tonight and asking the questions and everything. Thank you for all the great comments as usual and everything. So, but yeah. And anybody who had anything, I think it was the Noises, maybe who had an offer. I haven't gotten any emails from you guys. So if you had something you wanted to send me or wanted to communicate with me about, send it pretty quickly here or send it soon so I can verify whether or not you did or not. So I appreciate that. And have a good night. Bless you. God bless. Sorry, guys. Not bless you. God bless.